Just turn on the controller when you sit down. Well, it's the screen turns black. Using. Okay. Well, welcome to another episode of the Co-Op Syndicate. My name is Jordan. I'm one of your co-hosts. Thank you for stopping by. Today we have a special guest. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi guys, my name's Sergio. Yeah,
you guys can probably remember him from episode 4 or 5. You've been around since the beginning. This gentleman here, writer, self-proclaimed director of films.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Well, you know, I made some stuff in high school. You know, I'm pivoting over to the author stuff more. But you know what? I am officially a novelist because I finished the first draft of my first novel. Now, granted, it's not out. No one can read it yet. The first draft is the one that you write for yourself. It's the story you tell for yourself, and then the second draft is when you tell it for other people.
Right. Right.
But it's the first time I've ever taken a book from page 1 to page done. So, you know, I'm excited about it. I'm in that period now where I'm taking a couple weeks off from hardcore work on it. But yeah, it's actually pretty exciting.
I'm very proud of you because I remember we talked about this a lot when you were last on. We were talking a lot about how the creative process works, how to get people motivated to do things, especially because, you know, as a director, you had to motivate a lot of your friends and
that's most of the job. You know, get everyone on the same page when it comes to a single vision.
And that can be rough, but I mean, a novel is more like an isolatory type of project, right? It's just you motivating yourself and trying to figure out what story you want to tell. So I'm very glad, you know, 3 or 4 months down the line, you've been finally able to complete at least one project.
Yeah, if you're gonna look that way for most of the time, I suggest you move the mic over there.
So we got that going on, and now Mike's finally ready. So our other co-host here, Michael C. Moore.
We're glad to have you back, Sergio.
Thanks.
Yep.
So
very, very excited to have you here. So anyways, now that we're all kind of settled in, I guess we can talk about the real deal today. So the real deal today isn't really interviewing Sergio. We could actually have that on episode 4 and 5. You can find in our channel, the Co-Op Syndicate, at any moment, or if you're on Buzzsprout, you can just go down the list and find our episode in one of the earlier listings.
Yeah, it's like episode 5, 6. So it's marked the same. 4, 5. 5. So it's marked the same everywhere.
Yeah.
In case you guys are
4 is the interview. 5 is our review of 2020 with none of the games that we played.
The review where we played 3 of the games that came out that year.
Pretty much. And
we decided that Doom Eternal was the best one.
We did talk about events that happened in 2020, so I guess we reviewed 2020 as a year, and someone talked about the stuff in gaming.
We talked about all the stuff that went on in the industry, but it was just
a review that matched the year it was reviewing. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, pretty much. It pretty much matched the year. But today we're actually gonna do something a bit different. We're actually gonna be showing off Returnal. We brought on Sergio as a person who himself has already mentioned on his podcast is not big on difficulty.
You guys were fucking floored when I said I was gonna wait for PS Plus. I was kind of surprised.
Well, this is the time now. We're gonna get you on Returnal here. We're gonna get you to experience Returnal. That's what the title of this episode is: Experiencing Returnal. We're gonna just have a discussion on it. We're gonna review it a bit, as much as we can. Hopefully express our opinions to people. I know people are on the fence about getting the game. It's a $70 game. Some people are upset about that pricing. They want it to go back down to 60. Even some people think 60 is too much. And for what the game is without actual auto saves or anything like that, people think that it's not worth its price. It should have been appraised at a lower price. But that is about to change. We're gonna have me, who's already experienced in the game, giving you guys my opinion. Mike, who's only had some type of experience, and then Sergio's first experiences or first impression is going to be a little bit more of what I guess people who haven't played it yet. He's going to be basically vicarious. Your viewers who haven't played the game are going to vicariously live through Sergio. And I'm going to try and hone in the opinion. Yes, you're the control project right now in this experiment.
Yep.
So we're going to see if Returnal is actually worth of a game or it's just a waste of $20.
Yep, I completely agree.
Okay.
Now, I don't know. The argument about the whole $70, $60 thing, that's its own separate beast. I guess the question is going to be if whether or not we think Returnal $70. And I think it's going to be nicest to see like Sergio experience a game like, you know, freshly, and we could all just talk about our own opinions. But for right now, I guess we should just get right into it and see how Sergio does.
I personally believe it is worth it. I don't speak for Mike, but
I'll withhold my opinions for like discussion afterwards.
Just to start, I personally think it's a good game. It's worth it. I mean, maybe 70's just like it's
a smidge too high.
Not that it's a smidge too high. It's justifiable, but it's like, I don't know. I have a different mentality where I feel like maybe a lower price entry could be better for new franchises, so they can have a better stick before going to the bigger, right? Because for as great as Returnal is, it's not the next big Last of Us or God of War, right? Where those games are gonna obviously be worth their grit. This game is new. It has to, you know, and it's going off on a very specific niche, right?
I guess what you're trying to say is that it hasn't necessarily earned an audience.
Yeah,
it doesn't have a big enough following.
Yeah, it's not just that though. It's also the fact that it's a niche, right? It's not something that that's like AAA production yet. Although it looks like a AAA, you're gonna notice that it's very much a AA product. It's very much like Psychonauts, but like exploded to a AAA.
I felt like it was super high quality. The only thing is that obviously it's not like the most cinematic, like, oh yeah, watch this cutscene, it's done in one cut, God of War style type of thing. But I don't know. I think it's better if we hold off the discussion until after we do the gameplay, just so that way Sergio can participate on an even playing field. But without further ado, let's just get into it. You know, Sergio, come on the hot seat and play the game.
We'll go ahead. Mike and Sergio will switch. They're gonna play the game live.
Right, so the homie's taking his water there. Am I in the shot? Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna get nice and relaxed.
The controller.
Oh, it's over there.
All right.
Hey, dope. Wow, look at me. I feel like Joe Rogan with
You
this
feel
short
like Joe
microphone.
Rogan? Yes, sir.
Hey.
Michael making those big purchases. Audience substantiated yet. Yeehaw.
That's called an investment.
Yeah, it is. So it's a mark of me showing that I believe in myself. I think that's the fairest way to put it.
Maybe there. I move this way. Okay, great. I'm more center. All right,
yeah.
So I can get play this game. Insert the disc. Damn it! I live in the future. I don't have to worry about plastic.
I'm so sorry about that. That's me being
Look at that, Jordan being a traditionalist.
Look, man, I was telling you at your house, I love collecting the plastic. I just wish I had the space for it.
Yeah.
You know? I do not. I'm already at capacity with all the stuff I have on my shelves. Things are just sort of stacked on top of each other in a way you can't even like tell what it is.
Well, if you think about it, look what's happening. A lot of people are scared now when the PlayStation 3 stores shut down. Supposedly you're going to be losing. I don't know. I've heard that people are going to be actually losing access to like their digital titles.
Well, so what that is that there's a battery inside of the actual PlayStation, right? The CMOS battery. And once that thing dies, there's no way for it to like actually tell the time anymore, remember the time. So it has to ping the PSN server in order to do that. If they turn that feature off, then all of the stuff that's time delayed, right? Like your PS Plus stuff and all that, there's no way for you to actually access it. So it's kind of crazy. And you know what? Part of it is just they didn't expect what people would want to fucking play this thing 20 years from now, right? I mean, when they made the thing in the first place. But I don't know. It's
I mean, I'm of the belief that if you buy something, it's yours for life, right? Unless it breaks or whatever.
I agree with you, but that's not what they're thinking, right? You sign the terms and conditions, and it's like, yeah, look, you're going to play by our rules, and our rules indicate that 20 years from now we're going to be on PS6. So why are you going to want to play PS3 games, right? The company themselves is not thinking that far ahead. You know, we are, right? Because we collect the stuff, we like to play the stuff. You know, I like to go back to old games and whatnot, but I wish they had an option where they let you play it on the new hardware, right? Like I would gladly pay for the games digitally and pay a premium for it if I could just play it on the new stuff.
Works on PS5, right? Is that what you're referencing? Like you want PS3 to be like how PS4 works on PS5? Just slip in the disc.
That would be fantastic if I didn't actually have to keep all the hard. Like I have all the hardware because I like the collection aspect of it.
Hey Jordan, can you get your camera?
To do it like that, where
turn
I
it
have
more
to
like
hang
towards
on to it.
that way. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing about PS3 is a very difficult thing to talk about because it's so far apart from everything that's been done in gaming since forever, right? I mean, we've always had I believe before it was the Broadcom CPUs and the GPUs and all that stuff that was done in consoles. Then they switched over to, well, Microsoft did their thing, and then of course Sony went the NVIDIA way. NVIDIA was a complete mess because it was a completely different, structure for all developers. So then they streamlined it by both of them going towards AMD on the last gen, I believe the 8th gen, and now with the 9th gen, they're still using AMD. So it's been a seamless improvement on the consoles. But the problem is that because it was so fragmented and so segregated from each other, that it caused. Well, I believe that PS3 just, despite the fact that it's technically the better console on paper, it was a cataclysmic event on the industry because it just changed the way everyone thought about development. and it changed it to the point where we're seeing the suffrage of being able to do it, right? So I know what you're saying, and that's what I want too. But then you hear it from the developer side, and you hear that a studio that was trying to remake Uncharted 1 could not in their size and capacity could not redevelop the game for PS5, so they had to move the project onto Last of Us, which was a bit more recent, where they had a bit more of an easier chance to restructure it.
Is that why they changed it? I thought it was that like Sony corporate was like, we would rather you remake The Last of Us.
They chose The Last of Us. The idea was to start with Uncharted, and corporate was fine. They were like, yeah, it's a franchise. It's one of our toughest, strongest sellers. Let's do it. But the problem is that with the team size, corporate came in and they do their checkups monthly or quarterly or whatever they do, and they just looked and it's like, hey, look, you guys seem like you can't be doing this project. Where it's going to cause a lot more. It's going to cause us to pay a lot more for more manpower. Let's give you an easier project. So they go on and moved on to The Last of Us remake. And by remake I mean like fully with all the bells and whistles, PS5 style. With
well, sure, right. My assumption is that they're using Naughty Dog's engine for Last of Us 2 to
exactly,
remake.
but then that proved to be too much for them as well, considering that it was originally a PS3 project, and to move it over to the new engine, it was a lot of things. It wasn't what they were used to, so they had to use extra Naughty Dog employees to start helping.
Shouldn't we be letting him like?
Well, we're doing the pre-thing before the intro. I mean,
no,
but how important is this? I mean, we're just replaying the game.
True. Well, I don't know. Maybe you want to have your thoughts on any of the cinematics or
look. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. There's gonna be no way for me to actually focus on this in a context where we're talking over it.
True.
Right.
That's fair.
I mean, it's not that big a deal. What I really care about here is what the game's gonna play like, because it's Housemarque, right? You're going into their pedigree. You're talking about Resogun. You're talking about Nex Machina. You're talking about Dead Nation. Going back into that arcade style of gameplay, I'm not really here for the story, I guess.
Fair. That's fair.
Well, I agree with what you're trying to say. I mean, he has his experience with or relation to Housemarque, so I mean, we're gonna let him play. But anyways, yeah, going on to the thing, it's like that difficulty proves that to port over PS3 games to now, it's a mess. I mean, there's still games I remember.
When they couldn't handle The Last of Us, and the question became, we should give this back to Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
It's at that point that if I were the producer, I would have been like, what the fuck are we spending this money for? Like, what are we doing right now?
Right.
You know, it's ridiculous to me that they're choosing to remake this game that's not even 10 years old.
Right.
You know?
And I agree. Now, I mean, they remade Spider-Man or remastered Spider-Man after 2 years, and that's fine. I mean, companies do that sometimes. They just port over to the next gen and all that stuff. But the biggest thing is the Last of Us thing at least makes sense, right? Because they're probably getting it ready for the TV show next year. And by next year, it'll technically be 11 years old, quote unquote. And if the rumors are true, and or at least the hope that people have is that they're going to bundle it up with Last of Us Part 2 remastered with factions, the multiplayer mode, I'm okay with that. But if they're just going to sell it off as its own $70 title, that's a big ripoff, right? Like, it needs to be at least how Spider-Man Remastered is, where it's like $20 at most, right? And the I mean, granted, compared
but will they even make their money back at that point, right? Because they're remaking the game from the ground up. I mean, that's $20.
That's what it is. That's what it is. No, but
I don't
remember, Spider-Man Remastered standalone is $40. It's only $20 when you bundle it up. So they would make their money back by selling off either as a package or as a standalone. They would sell it at 40, right? Assuming they do it like how they did with Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think that's more realistic, that they sell it standalone as like $40. You can get the bundle for like 100. I mean, I don't know. I don't see it.
But all I'm trying to say is there's a lot of difficulty with trying to understand what is the cost of trying to bring all your PS3 over, right? And I've been saying that for Nintendo forever, right? I want all my Nintendo to be in one console, and it looks like it's finally happening with the Switch, but we'll see if that happens. All right, so now we're getting into like the deeper doo-doo stuff in Returnal. We just found out, or your character finally finds out that No, it's like Mass Effect 1. It's all energy based.
Yeah, okay, so you're gonna have a limited amp. Like, okay, so fire the gun real quick. You see how you see the ammunition going down? So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you go like shoot out your full clip, you'll see that it has the active reload thing. So if you hit the fire button again within the rectangle,
it'll reload everything.
It'll auto reload, so that's faster. Yeah. If you hit it outside of the rectangle, though, the reload will take longer.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Or you could also just opt to just wait. So risk reward type of thing, you know?
Yep. And as you saw on the radar, there was like a little icon, like white icon. Those are usually, pickups that you can pick up and all that stuff.
And also, I just want to mention, for those of you who have made it this far, who were patient enough to make it this far on with us on Buzzsprout, obviously this is going to be a little bit more of a visually heavy episode. So I highly recommend you, if you guys are used to listening to us on Buzzsprout, please check us out on YouTube. YouTube.com. Just look up the Co-Op Syndicate. We should pop out. This is going to be episode 23. You'll see us all playing our Returnal here. But we'll also try to do our best job trying to describe what's going on the screen and just trying to make it a very visually heavy conversation.
Aggie here taking ownership of my property as always.
Exactly, dude. I got a commie cat. He's like, our games.
Yes.
It's our game.
All right. So let's see. So far, we got Sergio getting into his first fight here. What's your impressions of the controls and how it looks and stuff so far, man?
Well, it's definitely
it's running 4K 60 with RT.
I like it. I like that it feels very smooth, very fast.
From the videos that I saw, I thought that it was gonna be like, I don't know, just from the trailers and stuff, I thought it was gonna be animated poorly, or that it was gonna feel too floaty, kind of like how Outriders looks like to me. I haven't tried Outriders yet, but Outriders, something about how you run and stuff doesn't sit well with me in that game.
You feel like that floaty thing from Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Where you're like literally like, it looks like you're bouncing
Kingdom
across.
Hearts 3 is floaty, but not. I don't know how to say it correctly. Like,
well, I know you didn't like it too much. The run
animation doesn't necessarily looks like it lines up very well, or it doesn't sync very well with how fast you're actually moving. But this game, you just feel like fast, And they did it. They made it feel well, I guess.
Is the difficulty pre-selected, or
yeah, it's like Dark Souls. It's just your one thing.
So you just play it as it is.
Yeah, it's always is. So eventually, you overcome the difficulty, but it's more of a matter of survival. This game is more of a matter of survival than anything, versus Dark Souls, where it's more about figuring out how to compete.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to me, I've played Demon Souls. I've tried some Dark Souls. To me, this game feels harder. My opinion. I don't know. Maybe some people are gonna disagree.
I disagree.
To me, it feels harder.
It does. At first, it does. But once you start getting more experience in the game, you start to realize that it's... I mean, both games have their set difficulty, and obviously, the more you play it,
the easier it gets. But that's just... the good thing about... since that happens a lot, especially to me, I don't know. Maybe it's my depth perception or something. My depth perception or something. They don't kill you for falling in. You just lose health, which still sucks.
But you can still die, though. I mean, if you fall enough times, or if you're low.
Can you imagine how horrible this game would be if, like, every single time you fell off, you had to reset?
Yeah, you can dash through those lasers, by the way.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, you can.
Your dash makes you completely invulnerable.
Oh.
Yeah, for the split second.
But it has a cooldown. Like, if you do your dash, you'll see a little square come up in the, like, next to your health bar, and that's a cooldown. You saw? Yeah. So you have to use it wisely.
No, let's see how far Sergio can make it.
I don't think he's gonna make it past the first boss.
Well, I mean, nobody makes it. Almost nobody makes it past the first boss. But the point is, once he actually does get past this tutorial section and he does go into the full cycle, I want to see how far he actually does make it.
If you actually beat the first boss, we're gonna officially name you Poppy Long Dick for the podcast, dude.
Dude, hell yeah!
You might have to go a little higher first to jump off of something else. This is like I said, this is all randomized.
Oh my lord! Oh yeah, he's not past that first boss, dude. That boss is gonna skin his ass. He's gonna walk up. He's just gonna get and that's gonna be it.
Slapped.
He fell again, so now he's rocked. I think he's at like 65% HP there.
Rocked as bad as Logan is gonna get rocked by Floyd Mayweather.
Oh man,
no doubt about that. All right, well, yeah, I mean, you're gonna see a lot of. I personally like the game, and so did Michael. Like I said, we both think it's justifiable in terms of price. Huh?
Does this have gyro aim?
What is it?
Where like you move the controller to like refine your shot?
No.
Oh.
Why? Do you want that?
I would like that if that was a feature.
Is that on options? Maybe you should check it out. Maybe.
No, it's not.
I know Resident Evil 8 is doing that, especially on console. I know they're doing that. But I'm also playing on PC. So I'm using the PS5 controller, and Steam is sort of automatically taking care of that.
No, I don't think this game has it. I haven't seen that as an option.
You could put aim assist on higher, maybe.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
No, I know. It's like two different things, but I don't know.
I wouldn't do it. You need to switch enemies, and then the things like a high, and then all of a sudden, like, Your gun gets pointed the wrong direction. That could be detrimental. You want to have as much control as possible with a little bit of support, right? I mean, a controller can only take you so far. It's not mouse and key, so.
Dude, I still think this game looks super gorgeous. Like, I like the whole art direction and stuff that they went with.
Right. Every that's what I kept seeing. That's what I keep saying. Right. The game is essentially a AA project, looking like a AAA product, disguised as a AAA product, and it fits. The game just. It looks phenomenal. It has really high-end graphics. It definitely shows us what the PS5 could be capable of. I don't think this game is the end-all, be-all of PS5. It doesn't capitalize what the console's completely capable of. But it does a good job of presenting the case that, yes, the PS5 does have some latent power that we haven't seen yet with like the games that they're creating. And there's still more to come.
For me, personally, I really just enjoy, like, I don't know. There's something about this game to me, like, this is just my opinion, where this feels like the best thing on PS5 right now. I know that some people are going to say, like, oh, Spider-Man Miles Morales is, like, you know, more, like, overpowered or whatever. Like, it makes better use of what the PS5 is capable of and stuff.
Well, this is, like, the only game you can only play on PS5, right?
This is the first official. You can play
on PS4, and Demon's Souls you can technically play on PS3.
Well, so. But, I mean, the PS5 versions of those games, obviously...
are better.
They are superior.
Like,
I'm just saying, this to me feels the freshest. Like, I don't know. I like... The gameplay feels pretty amazing. The music, which I don't know if you'll be able to hear, sadly, since it's so low. It's really nice too. I like the enemy designs and just the whole thing. That the game's just really neat.
Talking about that, so you see on the top left of your screen where it says malfunctions. That's what I was trying to tell you. Where sometimes you pick up objects, but you have to decide when and how you take them, because they could give you a debuff like that, where killing enemies drops a pile of or a pool of acid. Oh boy! And that could affect you.
Oh boy!
You have one shot left, pretty much.
Yep.
Yo, watch Sergio actually do it like a big dick. Oh no, he's dead.
There's no running away, bro.
He's dead. He's so dead. He is so fried. Yo, man's chose to run. He entered fight or flight mode, and man said flight.
I was looking around for fucking items or something.
It's fine.
That's essentially like the first boss of Demon's Souls. You're technically supposed to just die there.
If you do beat it, though, they give you rewards. Like, they give you permanent buffs.
Yeah. Pretty dope.
Only if you beat it the first time.
No, well, you never get an opportunity to fight him again. You have to start the game fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't those like up to you die or something?
Huh?
Aren't those buffs like
no, they're permanent. I think they're like permanent through the rest of your. That's what I read, because I saw it on like Gameology or something, where they actually documented someone beating that first boss.
Yeah.
And then they got upgrades, which Gameology went out of their way to specify that they're permanent. So I'm guessing that means they last throughout all your cycles.
No, but maybe that could just be items that are permanently like they appear in all your cycles that you pick up, right? Because I mean, the way the game works is you start with nothing, but there's certain things that as you unlock them, they unlock for all your runs. So then you can pick them up again in the future. So that's
just
what I want to
know. Did you notice how the map changed now? And there's different enemies in different places. That's what happens every single time you die. Then that's supposed to be the big thing or one of the big things for Returnal is that, which makes it like a rogue, which makes it a roguelike effectively.
Right, and that's the complaint that people have, right? It's not that the game does that because Hades was good and it did that. It's that in general, Hades does the same thing that you're seeing right there, where it changes the maps and the enemy placement and all that. But it's a 40-minute game versus this game, which is a 3 or 4 hour game with no saves or whatever, so you get screwed.
It's a very big. All right, so check it out. So right there, your primary fire doesn't work, so you have to do the secondary fire like that. Now you'll notice, since you have that secondary fire, that for you to zoom in, you have to like press the trigger only halfway.
Yeah, the half press.
Yeah, the half press.
Well, the resistance, right?
Yeah,
so you can actually, if you only lightly do it, you can actually like feel it when it's supposed to stop.
Right. And well, I mean, I should. Well, I don't know if the guest option has it, but mine, I usually put it at strong so I can really feel the push or the kickback, and it feels almost natural. Yeah. At this point, to be able to like switch between holding halfway or not, because the trigger gives you that resistance, which allows you to
attack.
To do to switch between alt fire and regular fire. So that's pretty good.
This is kind of old school in the sense where like those two things right there, you can only interact with them with an item that you find later on. So you'd actually have to backtrack. Same thing with that thing. That thing is only. Should I tell him? I don't know.
Concerning.
Yeah, they really screwed him over. This game doesn't like Sergio at all. They were like, hey, you know,
you're just gonna have to skip that one.
Because it knows I was talking shit about it 6 months ago.
Exactly.
That's the only enemy you're not gonna be able to beat because you need the sword.
Okay, so I need like a special gun to even.
No, a sword.
Use that.
You need a sword? to beat the turret guy.
Nice.
So you're just gonna have to pick up all the items and then run to the next room or whatever.
You're gonna have to backtrack here. Just kill that one guy and then
on your radar, the blue little triangles or the blue triangles are side doors or side like chambers, and then the light blue ones are the ones that you can go through the main way. Right?
Notice how that I was gonna say that treasure box has a high probability of a contamination or a malfunction. So you saw, since you picked that up, it gave you reduced max integrity.
But his objective was to open another one.
Okay, yeah. So
and then luckily he got RNG and he didn't get a malfunction in these two, which is just pure luck and BS.
Another thing, I think, what happens when you get 3 of those, you die automatically or something?
No, it hurts you and then it takes away one of your perks, buffs or whatever you have.
Oh, okay. So
there's no limit. Got lucky that the other two didn't give him. There's no limit.
What is integrity?
Integrity is your health.
Okay.
Or a suit integrity.
I want that. As much as that is.
Yes. Well, what that does is it converts the money into that you get from killing enemies. So a lot of things, right? Okay, so you see that little door. You have to find the switch to open those.
Circle to get out. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, whenever you run into a gate like that, that means you have to look for a switch in the same room that you shoot at, and then the gate will open.
Oh, okay.
But it could be in a remote. It's usually in a remote location.
Just to give you a better idea, because I know you're a big fan of this other franchise I'm about to mention. Everyone's relating this game a lot to Metroid. So think of this as like a Metroidvania roguelite third-person action-adventure shooter horror game. If that makes sense.
It does kind of give me Metroid Prime vibes. Obviously, the Metroid Prime has its own like Metroid-esque like mechanics, like turning into a ball and stuff like that. This game doesn't have it, but it just gives me those vibes.
Usually the switch is a lot closer to the door, so it might be above you. A lot of times.
Dude, I love everything. I mean, I've only seen World 1. I haven't seen the other ones yet. But I love like the look, feel of World 1. I love the music in it. Like the sound effects is just so nice.
Forget it.
World 2.
I want to shoot them.
World 2 kind of makes me crap my pants a little bit, especially with like there's like this one enemy that kind of does, but I've kind of learned to fight them a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But World 3 is the one that really takes me off my edge. Because there's these enemies that shoot homing rockets and they shoot so fast that sometimes you can't see them coming and they're just already like in your face. So it's kind of some of the things that you have to learn and adapt to this game, that they send you a lot of things that could really throw you off balance. And now you're seeing with this chest that you can't open, there's a lot that you have to look for, right? There's a lot of backtracking in this game. I mean, obviously as you get further and further into the game, the backtracking is a little bit less because you have all the gadgets you need. But there's always going to be like a closed off room or whatever that you might want to come back to so that you can pick up the upgrades in that room and keep going, right? Especially like this room right here, which is locked. So you might want to use your next key for either a chest or for that door. I personally would pick the chamber, so on and so forth. I would not waste my money on those, but I mean, it's up to you. That just randomly generates an item.
I didn't know you could just run through those.
I figured it out the other day.
When Sergio is already more advanced than us.
This game doesn't tell you anything. You really got to just run in there and test it out, right? Now, on one of my walkthrough episodes, I died jumping into lava thinking, because on the other 2 times I tried it, it didn't hurt me. So I was like, oh, I guess I can just walk through all this. I jumped into it and I died.
No.
And I was like, damn.
I do like that I can run head first into a door and it doesn't slow me down at all.
Yeah.
Like I can keep
it. It is very nice, isn't it?
Well, that's the magic of SSD loading, right?
Oops.
That's the magic of SSD loading.
Sergio's about to get ready for. Oh, there you go. You got a max heal crystal, or one of the ones that heal you at least a lot.
Okay, you can't get that.
I can.
I'm gonna tell you right now, you can't.
Okay.
That's underwater, and that's a thing that even I haven't unlocked yet. In World 4, supposedly it's in World 4, but I haven't gone to it yet.
That way.
So those light bluish or sky bluish
just
doors.
Call them rectangle and triangle, so that way it's just easier.
Oh yeah,
so
the
rectangles are open ones.
No, those are the main way.
Okay.
And then the triangle blue ones are your side doors.
Yeah. But typically, I think what happens in the triangle ones is that there's something there, like treasure chests or like a healing station, just something like that.
And value, then, of course,
if you go through a rectangle door, it just could be any random room, like.
Oh look, the shield's off, so you can kill it now. So remember, every time you get shot, you lose your focus meter. So you got to be careful with those.
Yeah, and remember that your dash makes you invincible, so you can literally go into shot. Like if you want to dash right to it, you can.
Yep. Oh, here
What's
we go.
this here?
Yeah, I think this is
found
first
a weapon.
Yeah,
Nice.
the first one.
God.
Sadly, you can only use one gun at a time. You can't
One thing I could say is the developer's been very vocal and public about the information they want to share about the game. And one thing that's currently plaguing the game is, well, it was, I don't know if it's still plaguing it to the same extent as it was before, but it was the save file corruption that people were getting, or they were losing like their entire save file. I mean, that's happened with pretty much every game that's come out. Every Ubisoft game has that. But it just sucks that for a game like this caliber, from being supported by Sony, to have that problem. However, they've mostly fixed it for now. Another thing that this game has, though, which people are still complaining and still have, and even I've experienced it, is there's still some frame rate stuttering that goes on in the game, where it like dips below 50 sometimes. But that's they said that it's an issue mostly because of the Unreal Engine, not necessarily because of the console. So they said that they're still working on it and ironing out as much as they can, but the only thing they can't fix is the one frame drops, where it'll go to 59 for whatever reason. I mean, at this point, no one's really going to complain about one frame drop, right?
Right.
I mean, that's mostly what people complain about when they have 200 frame setups and then it drops to like 199 and they complain about it. But for the most part, I mean, the game runs fluently. It's smooth. It has ray trace lighting, not reflections, but lighting.
Okay.
And they did a pretty fantastic job, right? Because RT only works in certain ways. It can't. RT, supposedly ray tracing doesn't work, or normal ray tracing, I should say, doesn't work the way that it works in this. So, because normal ray tracing, what it does is that it works based off of preset maps, but because this game's map changes all the time, they needed to create an AI adaptive ray tracing that would change with the level, and that's what makes it look so interesting, is that they were able to keep all the integrity of all of that while maintaining the ray tracing. Another thing that you might want to find interesting is that this game isn't 4K native, it's actually 1080p native on purpose.
Really? Why's that?
They said, for some reason, the designers, they said that for artistic direction, they wanted to do it as 1080p. Because they wanted to kind of give like sort of a mystery to the design of the world with the art, and if you do it at 4K, they would have to add like more details that would just take away from the mystery. But another interesting thing about it is that because it's 1080p and they're upscaling it, they have the opportunity to increase frame rate and keep all the hardcore lighting that they have with the ray tracing. Right? Because
did you say that they want to make it 1080p to enhance mystery?
Yeah. So the way that they do it is the fog that you're seeing right there is the way that they designed it is that because of its low res, they're able to kind of make it more I don't know how to explain it, like, because I remember in the video, I was watching the video and it's on IGN, everyone can see it, by Dustin Lagaria. It's like a performance review of the game with the creators of the game, and they were saying that one of the things that the lower resolution brought to them was that the fog, that they were able to kind of make it not as a sprite but like dense in a way that it could hide some details and give more of a mystery like to the game in the way that the details are made. But at the same time, it's also a valuable thing to them because they can improve frame rate and lighting at the same time. If you were to blow up everything to 4K assets, the game would not have the same lighting effects that you're seeing right now. They wouldn't be able to keep the frame rate.
I would venture to say that that's probably the leading motivating factor.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that they're just trying to maybe.
Well, it reminds me of like the Order 1886, where they're like, yeah, 30 FPS is the closest we could get to a cinematic feeling. Like,
yeah.
What?
I mean, I understand that point, but I mean, there's also times where in films, film creators do it too, where they decide to do 4:3
aspect ratios.
No, but I think there's a difference between like an aspect ratio choice where you're like trying to create a deliberate feeling, and then like a technical concession that's made in the interest. Damn! Oh wow, it was an alternate fire.
Well, what if
technical concession that's made in the interest of performance?
But what if they just set it to run at a constant 24 FPS, so that way it's kind of like the cinematic frame rate and stuff as well.
Well, at least in the case of the Order, they said that they tried that and they realized that it was terrible. Like, that no one would want to play the game that way, so they brought it up to 30. But what's interesting about the Order is that to talk about aspect ratios, it's rendered in 235 by 1, right? So you've got the black bars on the top and the bottom of the screen. So in theory, they should have more performance overhead because they're rendering less pixels on the screen.
Right.
But no, what do they use that power for? They use it for cloth physics.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you've actually played the game. I know you have the steelbook.
I've touched the game for about the first 30 minutes.
It is the most boring 4-hour movie I've ever played in my life. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It takes away control from you so often.
Wow, Jordan, you were trying to give my Last of Us for that.
Well, I mean, everybody has a different experience, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure Sir doesn't sit here and gloss over Naruto's amazing.
What does Naruto have to do?
I'm just saying, like, everybody perceives things differently.
Yeah,
you
look,
don't like
you
Vampire Diaries, I tolerate it.
Each their own. I just mean that for anyone out there. Like, if you like the game, you like the game.
There's people that love Order 1886, but I understand where Sergio's coming from, right? And then that's what I can't say his last name, but I'll just say his their first name, Rue. One of the lead creators of the game, they said, we learned from our mistakes and we're making a new console franchise coming back from VR, because they spent a lot of their time in VR at Oculus Rift, and now they're just working on their own products, right? They realized that taking away so much control for the game to make their intended vision was the wrong decision for game development, and that because they learned from those mistakes, they're hoping to make a better project in the future, right? So that's what hopefully we're gonna see, like that as a company, because this is the same company that freaking made Ghost of Sparta, one of Sergio's favorite games, the God of War game where you fight Kratos' brother, and he loved that game on PS. It was on PS4.
You know, I always, Ghost of Sparta is the better of the two. I do lean a little more towards Chains of Olympus.
Really?
Purely out of a nostalgia play, though.
Okay.
That one was like the first God of War game I ever got into. I broke my PSP, and we had a warranty at Best Buy. And my dad takes me to Best Buy to go get it replaced, and we go talk to the guy, and they're like, all right, go pick out a unit, right? And it was between a regular just black PSP, or I could get the red PSP with the M-rated game that I knew had sex scenes in it, and with a copy of Superbad that I knew was an R-rated movie I wasn't allowed to play, or watch rather. I was like, okay, great, let me get this thing and see if he'll let me get away with it. He had no idea that I was fucking buying this thing.
Hey.
So, how old am I at this point? Like 11, maybe 12? I don't know. So I just threw my dad on the bus for not paying attention to the ESRB. But that was my first God of War, right, that I got into, which is why I'm more partial to it. If we're talking about the whole franchise, then I think the 2018 one is the best one you can play. But Chains of Olympus definitely is a little, that one I have a little soft spot for, and I could speedrun that game in like less than 2 hours.
Nice.
Like I played it so much because it was one of the only games I had.
Yeah, you're just. I understand the nostalgia factor. It's pretty strong.
But the point is, it's like they come off of that to make the Order 1886, and I get what they were saying. The problem is that they heavily promoted the game. When you look at the game's gameplay, they heavily promoted it as some type of actiony God of War type. You can step on the portal now, I think. You should have picked up the power up from. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, you should have picked it up from the alien.
Oh, cool.
So what I would do is jump. The way that I would jump down is I would jump, but aiming towards the wall, and then you dash into the chest. There you go. I actually missed that chest the first time, so I'm glad I was able to help.
Wait, but you don't even have to aim though to do the dash,
I'm
right?
just making it easier for him. If you stare at the chest, it's easier for you to aim your dodge. That's the healing consumable. So that if you press that button, it will heal you up. Versus yours, the other one, which just convert money into.
And what button do I press? L1?
Yeah. Whenever you need it.
Nope.
Right. So going back to the thing, it's the problem is that they heavily promoted and marketed that game as the next Gears of War. As a
which game? Which game?
Order 1886.
Order 1886.
So they heavily promoted it as Gears of War with cover-based action, third-person action shooter, and what we got was Heavy Rain with some third-person action, and that's the problem. I think if they would have marketed that game as Heavy Rain but with a little bit of action, it would have probably fared better, because they wouldn't have lied to us and given us an expectation that wasn't there. And I think that's just in the fault of marketing and the way that marketing works. I know that they do these things to try and sell, but the problem is that if you just take away from the reality they're trying to show, or maybe in their heads, that's probably what the developers wanted. But I'm just saying, the game.
Well, look, I think on some level it was the, I don't know if intention is the right word, but when you're thinking about the game as it's coming out, right? The way they're marketing it to people, just like you said, it's like this sort of Gears of War clone. But the way they're marketing it to the the games press, right? Ether. Oh shit! Am I gonna get some fucking Ethereum over here? The way they're marketing it to the games press, like when they were showing it off at GDC and E3, they're not showing off like gameplay levels. They're showing off like the physics of the flags moving, right? And they're showing off like the texture detail on the faces, and they're like super into the actual like presentational aspects of it. Like, look at the power of the PS4. Look how much, you know, facial animation we're able to do with this or that. So it's really trying to push the technical aspects of it, and then focusing so heavily on that, not putting enough attention on the actual gameplay element of it, where it just comes off feeling like a movie that you kind of get to like fuck around with, like maybe every 20 minutes or something. And that's why I didn't like it, because I'm not a huge fan of games that like take away control from you all the time, you know?
Well, what's your stance on Heavy Rain then? Because I know you like that.
I haven't tried to play it in 10 years, right? Okay. I'm sure if I tried to play it now, maybe I'd have a little bit of a different opinion about it. But the way you play that game is very different, right? Like the actual structure of how you're playing the physical game, the mechanics you're engaging with, they don't lend themselves to like the third-person action type of game, right? So if I go into the Order expecting third-person over-the-shoulder, you know, like we're going to be shooting lichens like it's nobody's business, and I only get that for like a third of the actual experience, yeah, that's kind of a, you know, that's false advertising to some degree.
Exactly.
But Heavy Rain, a good example where it's like, yeah, if I go into the game and I know the way it's played, then I get an idea of the experience I'm going to be getting. It would be like going into a Telltale game expecting it to play like Doom or something, you know? Like,
just imagine
you should have some idea of the kind of game you're going to be getting.
Back to the Future, but with Doom music.
Yeah, like it's just, you know, going into that style of game expecting a completely different thing, then yeah, at that point you're setting yourself up for failure. But you know, in the case of the Order, that I think you're right on the money there, where it was just not advertised properly.
I personally feel like when I played the first 30 minutes of Order 286, I knew exactly already what type of game it was, and essentially to me, it just feels like a very well put together game based off of that one level. So
you have to stand in like the center there, and then press interact, and then it'll let you look between all of them.
Yeah, it'll let you look through all the items you can fabricate. I know we should be talking more about Returnal.
Well, if he's just running around doing random stuff, then whatever. But, you know, obviously when there's a point of interest, let's talk about it instead.
Yeah.
People are going to be watching this and they're going to be like, oh, they're talking about Order 1886. Click on.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, so those there, that you'll find a couple of those rooms or a couple of those things in some rooms. And typically they just give you the option to either spend your money on like a consumable,
an artifact that could be a permanent buff for the rest of your run.
Yeah, without giving you any debuffs compared to the parasites that you'll find soon,
right,
like sooner or later.
Oh.
You also have the option of permanently increasing your integrity, like, you know, like your integrity pool. I don't know what it's called. What's your health bar called in this game?
Integrity.
It's just integrity. Yeah, there's like you could get a power up that like makes your integrity bar bigger unless you have more integrity, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I forgot what the one on the left does. Oh, the one on the left is like a converter, right? Where it lets you switch between, lets you convert two different types of currency.
Yeah, it lets you convert Ooblets to Ether and Ether. I've never had enough Ooblets
to
switch to an Ether, but I've had enough Ether to switch to Ooblets.
What's the difference? Like, what do you use Ether for? Ether's for like
Ether is for removing
Ether is for
malignancy.
decentralized financial application. Oh.
This man with his crypto.
Get your crypto out of here. I'm tired.
Crypto shit out of here.
Get that crypto shit out of here.
So Ether is used for
location.
How can I say? It's for taking away or removing malignancy from items that have malignant things. It's all for purification, basically. Purifies certain things. It also allows you to interact with resurrection spheres that allow you to revive yourself. So there's a lot of things you can do with it, and they're very helpful. And they actually stay per cycle. Even if you die, you get to keep all your.
Okay, cool.
So yeah. Going back to the Order 1886 real quick, because I just wanted to finish my comment. It's that entire game is essentially based off of that one level of Beyond Two Souls, where you're in Africa and you have to go and save that one informant. You know what I'm talking about, Sergio?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you know how it fits the bill, right? Like how it's like.
You know what the dumbest thing about that section is, right? Is that the way the game is structured, they put all the tutorial levels at the beginning, right? So they teach you how to play the game, and then there's going to be a combat section, right, later on in the game. But because they have to put all the tutorial stuff in the first hour, you have this weird transition where first you're dancing at a party, right? And then you summon a demon and no one likes you, right? Because you're a teenage girl and, you know, I don't know, whatever the fuck. Right?
No one likes you because you're a teenage girl?
I guess. I don't know. And then the very next chapter is you in Africa, like basically like trying to, like, I don't know, it was Quantic Dream's attempt at doing like, you know, gunplay or something like that. It was terrible. You go 6 hours. I mean, literally like 6 straight hours without any gunplay, without any of that stuff. And then you go into the Africa section, and they don't give you any indication as to how to play the game. It's been 6 hours since you've asked me how to play this way. Now you have to learn how to play the game in a completely different new way. It made no sense. I remember they came out with an update. They came out with an update afterward, I think when they came out with the PS4 version, that let you play the game in chronological order, because that would be fixed if you played it that way, right? Because then that section would line up with when that new gameplay thing is happening, right? But instead of putting that all, they put it all the way at the beginning, and whatever. That's one of a litany of problems that Beyond Two Souls had. But
yeah, I mean, for the most part, I understood the director's vision. You're right. This is a kind of thing where I'm always like, I always try to, zero myself out, like my own personality off of first impression.
So when you're switching, you have to see what it is that you're doing exactly. So there's different types of weapons. You can see that this one's the exact same weapon. Well, it's not the exact same weapon. It's the same style of weapon. They're both the tachyomatic carbine, whatever you want to call it. But the one you currently have equipped is a level 2, which I don't know what difference that makes. Versus
it's just rating. It just means it has higher quality. Or it has a chance to be of higher quality.
So it's just a number to kind of give you an idea how good the weapon is or whatever.
Obviously, a 10 rating would be better than a 1 rating, right?
Right.
But it also depends on what you like and all that stuff.
Yeah, because you could get 2 weapons that are the same weapon with the same rating, but the stats might be different, or it also might have a different alternative fire. So that's something you have to pay attention to. Look at what the alternative fire is, and look at the different stats that gets broken down below. You see, so that's a lower rating. It's a sidearm.
Perks. You saw how on that gun real quick. If you just go back to it real quick, just to tell you. Okay, so you see how the snub nose barrel has 47%. So that's one of the things that you do get to keep, right? If you unlock or fully level up a weapon type with all its perks, every time you pick up that gun, regardless of how many times you die, you always get to keep those perks.
Okay.
If you RNG those perks again.
Yeah.
So that's a way that the game lets you level up technically and get stronger per cycle, which people don't understand that, because they're just upset that they lost like hundreds of hours of progress or whatever.
I was also going to point out too, I mean, obviously I think the carbine for most situations is going to be better, but that sidearm there had what I think is one of the best alternate fires in the game, which is the shock stream.
The shock stream.
If you can ever find something with a shock stream, I would definitely grab it.
But the shotgun, I know shotgun's also one of your favorite.
Yeah,
I know you like the shotgun. I didn't like it too much.
You didn't like the shotgun? I felt like the shotgun was broken. With the shotgun, I would always get to like max adrenaline level, and that shit would have a sniper shot on top of also being a shotgun, and it had like the little.
Yeah. There's some crazy things you can get in the game, but I don't know. I don't know if I like. Hey, look, it's the guy you fought in the beginning.
Oh no! Yo, Sergio's so dead.
Oh, dude, that sucks.
Okay, shotgun is not for me.
Oh, it's not for me.
Psycho 1 is gone.
Yep, Psycho 1 is gone. How does that make you feel, Sergio?
Fucking therapy.
Therapy. You're about to need therapy with how difficult this game is.
I'm here to shoot Dino.
Sergio's like, I came here to kick ass and chew bubble gum. And I'm all out of
bubble gum. How do you not say bubble gum again? You just said gum.
That's how he says it.
Oh, well.
Well, it depends. If you're doing the Duke Nukem version, and he just says gum. If you're doing the Roddy Rod Piper version from They Live, he says bubble gum. And
So
actually, he says it the other way around. He says, I'm here to chew bubble gum and kick ass.
Oh, okay.
I'm all out of bubble gum.
Yeah.
So you saw how your adrenaline level went up, and then when you shoot your gun, it does.
Not.
Oh, okay. Well, look, shoot your gun.
Things. What is my adrenaline?
It's down there. You see the 1.6. Every time you kill an enemy, you get 0.3.
But it goes away if you get hit, right? So now if you fire a gun, you'll notice that there's an extra little. You saw that? You see that? That thing that's flying out and hitting them.
Okay.
That's what happens. So like when your adrenaline level goes up, your weapons become stronger and stronger.
The more time you spend without getting touched,
the higher that goes.
The higher that goes, and the stronger your weapon becomes.
Oh.
So it's just like Galaga, man. It's just like Nex Machina, Resogun, all that stuff. In a different way, of course, but.
Well, Galaga, I think, still didn't have the whole. It didn't have the thing where like
you pick up a power up and it switches your thing to two-sided shooting, and then eventually the three blaster shooting. But if you get hit or you die, well, usually when you get hit in those games, you die and then you lose the power up.
Okay.
But it's kind of the same thing.
Oh.
And that is the magic of Returnal, which is the suffering when you get wrecked.
There you go. So now you're back to adrenaline level 1, and your gun's kind of stronger again. To me, it's really satisfying when you reach max adrenaline level. I really love that about this game, because like I said, I love running the shotgun, and then when you have like the maxed out shotgun, it has 2 little auto aiming things on top of the shotgun, just being stronger.
What is the highest adrenaline level you
get? 5. Like 5, yeah. Which is really easy to get to. Well, you just have to make sure you don't get hit.
I think you can get 6 if you get a perk or something, but it's very rare. I maybe I'm just crazy and I was just seeing it through all the pain.
Beautiful.
But going back to Beyond Two Souls and all that stuff. I mean, look, the game, I understand the artistic direction and the vision that they had with it. I understand the story. I understand what that game is about. I just feel like the way they did it alienated way too many people, which is what you were saying, right? Where it's like you go 6 hours without playing this one type of gameplay style, and then all of a sudden it just goes out of proportion, right?
Yeah.
They have that as a problem, and also the fact that they were limited, of course, by the PS3, and there's a lot of things that people can say about the game, but just in general, it's at least that game had the heart on their, they had their heart on their sleeve, and they promoted it the way that it needed to be promoted, right? Where it was, this is a cinematic story where you get to interact with the cutscenes and stuff and do a bunch of things. The Order 1886 didn't do that, and that's why that happened in that game. But I'm sure that me now getting close to playing it soon, I'm probably going to play Ratchet and Clank instead, because of Rift Apart coming out soon. I want to be ready for when the game comes out so I can do walkthroughs of it. But I'm pretty sure I'll enjoy the Order 1886 for sure. Okay, so right there, you can't get across those parts because that leads to World 3, but you don't have the grappling hook, which you need to get the World 2 or Biome 2 for. So for now, you just got to keep going and searching until you get. Basically, you're on a one-track goal right now. You're just trying to find the broadcast of White Shadow and basically fight the first boss and
yeah,
and eventually get the sword.
And just so you know, I don't know if you noticed, but when you pass by a translocator, what that is like a quick travel point.
Okay. Yeah.
So every single time you find a translocator, if you need to, like, you're like, oh wait, there's something that now I could get in that room. Let me go back there. You could just open up your map and then go to that room. Okay. But I think you have to find a translocator to then quick travel. Actually.
No, he needs just the key. I think there's like a tool that you need, and then you can use it, and then you just need to have at least 2 translocators active so you can flip between one.
Oh, okay, and you can just do it like anytime with a map open.
Yeah, as long as you have another one to go to.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but he needs to have. I think he found the tool already. He can do it whenever he wants. But of course, when he needs it. So yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about today was, of course, Ratchet and Clank, because I just wanted to mention real quick. Not only did I see the movie yesterday, and woof, that movie, man.
There was a Ratchet and Clank movie. What the fuck?
It came out in 2016. Yeah. They made the game a game for it.
Yeah, toward the end of the PS4 life cycle, Sony was really trying to do like animated films based on its IP. They were doing Sly Cooper, Heavenly Sword, and Ratchet and Clank. What? Heavenly Sword came out, and Ratchet and Clank came on the theater. Sly Cooper never actually made it out. It ended up being, they were going to turn it into a movie, and then it ended up being a cartoon, like a Saturday morning cartoon. And then that was the last we had ever heard of anything happening with that series. Right. And nothing has happened since then. I'm pretty sure that cartoon
I must not be that big of a Ratchet and Clank fan because I never fucking heard of that. I'm actually surprised. I must not be that big of a Sony fan because I didn't hear about any of that. Where
like
did these come out?
I think Sony is hoping you didn't
in
either.
2016.
In theaters.
This is what I keep trying to tell you. Essentially, us, you and me, somewhere in 2015, we just turned our minds off, and
I was working
you had your
multiple
work
jobs, so
and your depression, and I had my depression and my own battles to deal with. So we just kind of turned off our brains, and we assumed at first that the PS4 era or the generation was trash, but there's actually a lot of hidden gems that we missed out, like things that we slept on. And me going back now, I'm like, dang, I missed out on a lot. I was ready to sign the PS4 generation and Xbox One generation as garbage, but it's actually pretty great.
I feel like that's a common refrain I hear from people our age, right? That the PS4 and Xbox One era was kind of like trashy, but like I feel part of that just has to do with like, we're kind of older, right? I mean, I feel like we're just not going to engage with stuff in the same way we were when, say, we were the age we were when the PS3 and the 360 came out. Like, I feel like if we were that age now, we'd probably look at the PS4 and the Xbox the same way that we look at the PS3 and the 360. You know?
But fair. But that's a fair assessment. But the problem is, it's also due to the fact, real life things you got to take in. Okay, so what was that thing called? I'm sorry, the
PvCaka,
the reconstructor. So what it is if you get 6 ethers and you turn those in, you get 1 free revive for this biome.
Okay.
So it gives you, and it reconstructs you with all your perks and everything. So it gives you a second shot at trying the biome, getting to the boss, and doing all the things you do.
Bro, holy shit! If I would have known that, I would have just spent all my time trying to get there. No, I did once. I got it once, but I messed up because then I sucked so bad that I just died to the boss. Like,
okay, so now you can't leave the area, and it's because of that green tower over there. So you need to go over there and destroy it. And then by destroying that tower, you'll open up all the doors and stuff, and the enemies will stop regenerating.
I also wanted to remind you, don't forget you have the all fire as well, and it you can always see the cooldown.
The enemies will stop regenerating once you destroy the tower.
Ah!
Oh man, yo, this room is handing Sergio's ass.
Yikes.
It's gonna. But anyways, going back to the movie, yes. So yeah, I mean, I know it's mostly because of work and people have life, and they get screwed and all that, right? But going back now, it's something that to me it's great because it's like, wow, I missed out on this thing, and now I have all this content. Even though I have the PS5, while I'm waiting for new games, I have the ability to play all these new games.
If you don't hit the tower, the enemies just keep regenerating. Oh, he died. He died.
I thought I had two.
Wow.
Oh well, that's it. It's over.
It's all right. It's all right. You're getting used to it. Growing pains.
Yep.
Well, look, it's like Souls in a lot of ways, right? Where you just kind of have to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and start over.
Yeah. But the gameplay is going to be a lot easier to pick up. You don't have to worry about
it's much faster,
RPG stuff. You don't have to worry about certain swords breaking or anything like that. This is going to be purely based on you and your gunplay skills. Oh, man. Well, anyways, after all those things that we missed out on, I'm glad I have so much content now on my PS5 that even while I'm waiting for new games like Rift Apart, I still have games like the Ratchet and Clank from 2016 to play and all that stuff, and I'm very happy for that.
Do you guys, I mean, I thought that Sergio's point on that was pretty interesting, where maybe it's also that we were like, you know, maturing out of it or something like that. But personally, I don't know. I felt like, and maybe I'm just being ignorant because of the fact that I wasn't aware of a bunch of the projects that were on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One and stuff. But I just felt that like the games that were bigger back during the PlayStation 3 era and the Xbox 360 era were just more unique and just kind of better, you know? Like, right. I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong there, guys.
But that's where, and I do agree with you, because one of my biggest complaints about at least Sony Studios is that most products are all these third-person action adventure games or action-driven cinematic adventure games, right? And Returnal is technically the first game we've gotten since, well, God of War from Sony that isn't a Last of Us type cinematic adventure, right? We've gotten a lot of people complain about that. Even God of War.
Why do you say God of War when God of War is very cinematic?
It is, but it's just because of the open worldish nature, I don't consider it that way. Whereas like Last of Us is like pretty straightforward cinematic adventure. It's all like you go one route, and it does give you the sense of openness. And Uncharted is the same way too, right? It's just you just have this one objective, get across the other side of the level, and be done with it. And
I don't think that dies.
Get to the next cinematic just like or whatever.
Temporary blind it.
Yeah. Get to the next cinematic adventure or cutscene or whatever. God of War had like exploration and customization, this and that, but it technically is the same. You're right. And that's one of the biggest complaints that many people have had from Sony titles, is that all they keep doing is that. But the problem is that that's what the developers wanted to make. They just want to keep making what they feel happy, and they're doing a good job of doing it. No joke.
That's what I'm saying too. Like back in the day, you just I feel like there was just so much more variety, and like you had games that were amazing, and they were just like all super different. Like you look at you know, back in that generation, you got one of the best Elder Scrolls ever made, Skyrim, and then they just kind of did Skyrim again, and Skyrim re-released, now Skyrim with mods, Skyrim.
Well, half the problem with them doing Skyrim over and over again is that people keep buying it, right? Like, I mean, that even Todd Howard himself was like, dude, if you guys stop buying it, we would make something else. But people keep buying the game, right? So I mean, we're at this point, we're 10 years out from Skyrim, right? So it's literally, it's been twice as long now between now and Skyrim than it was between Oblivion and Skyrim, right? So I hear you, right? That it seemed like there were more unique things, and
but it's also
we were trying out different things back then,
right? But it's also because they were producing a lot faster, right? Whereas we got 3 Uncharted's and a Last of Us in one generation. We got Last of Us 2 and Uncharted 4 with a smaller Uncharted Legacy in the second generation, which is the PS4, right? You know, I'm talking about PS3 to PS4. And PS3, we had GTA 4, GTA 5, LA Noire, Max Payne 3, what was that other product? I think that we had virtual tennis from them as well, right? And, and they I think they even helped with whatchamacallit, Midnight Club 3 at some point. So 5 games from Rockstar, including re-releases and stuff. And then
Grand Theft Auto 5, and then that's all we got
came
for a
out,
decade.
GTA 5 again, and then Red Dead 2, and that's it. With the Last of Us, not Last of Us,
perhaps part of it is the games are just bigger and more complex now, right? Like they were making smaller type of games, but now to make games on the kind of level of expectation that people have for those brands, particularly stuff like Naughty Dog and Rockstar, it just takes longer for the same kind of game to come out.
And people don't know the difficulty of if anybody does pivot for 2 minutes, you'll know how annoying it is to go from frame to frame to move the characters, like to create the characters animation. You blow that up to 4K assets, no matter how big your team is, you're gonna have to check every single detail through a project manager to make sure
you kind of skipped a few steps there too. Like when you think about it, like even just I know what you're saying, but I'll just elaborate on that. So Pivot is like that 2D stickman animation software where like even to get anything that looks that has a semblance of looking okay, you'll sit down probably half a day and you'll probably only get like 10 seconds, and it probably won't even look that good. So imagine working with like something as big as a video game and then having to worry about coding, programming, all these other things on top of that as well, not just animation. And you're looking at a very expensive, monumental, labor intensive task.
But then going through all those projects, making sure, okay, does this piece of cloth go through the character's body? Is the game glitching out? Can it not load these textures? Can do this and that? Did we miss a texture here? Which is why sometimes you get the Assassin's Creed game and Skyrim games where you go to a certain section of the level and literally the texture's missing and you can see right through the game world. These are the type of situations that as the games get bigger, it gets harder and harder to find those problems and to fix them and to grade it.
The games on the higher end are getting much bigger, but I think a lot of the uniqueness that you're looking for, a lot of that just moved over to the indie space.
Yeah, right? Exactly, and that's what it is.
In that same era, right? I mean, you had stuff like Fez, you had stuff like Braid, you had stuff like Hotline Miami. That was great. Shovel Knight. I mean, a majority of the games I played on my Vita, which I guess was toward the beginning of the PS4 life cycle, right? Because about 2016 is really kind of when it dropped off from there. But a lot of the most unique design came from those smaller teams. I don't know how many of those games that you actually went out and tried to play, but I mean, if you've never tried to play those games, then I mean that's a whole cavalcade of stuff.
And that's what I'm trying to say, right? The PS4 fell from having Uncharted tier games to such a high level like the way the PS3 did. It made up for it in indie, and we had interesting projects throughout the PS4 title that we all just slept on because none of those companies had the marketing power to put themselves in the front lines like Uncharted did, right? That's why Sony left E3, because they're not like, we're not going to spend 3 years of promoting to you God of War when we can just show it to you on the final year when it's finally ready to be shown, right? That's what they did with Cyberpunk. They've been teasing Cyberpunk since 2014 before Witcher came out, and 7 years later it ended up being dog water, right? It's a mess. So, I mean, sure, they fixed it now and it looks a lot better, but the point is that when it initially came out, they've been teasing it forever. And I mean, do you want to just have the same game paraded to you as a carrot for the rest of your life or not? And I think that's where the indie space comes in, and now we're seeing the support that the companies are showing. Like, one game I'm actually interested in is Stray, the cat game. Like, I don't know, it just looks freaking intense, and I want Sifu, or as some people would like to say, Saifu. I don't know why anybody would pronounce it that way, but whatever. It just
ignorance, whatever.
But Sifu, the game where you play as a kung fu master that ages every time you die, it's almost like a roguelike. My balls
shriveled into my body when you did that. He almost just ate the laser. He almost dashed into the laser, just like, no.
So that's one of the biggest things about that generation is that we slept on a lot of gems. And I think now me going back, like I just bought Titan Souls for like $1 the other day. It was on sale on the PS Store for like $1, and I bought it. And it's a game that I thought was interesting. A lot of people said, oh, it's fun like Dark Souls and this and that, whatever. But I just didn't buy it. At the time I didn't have the money, and I was like, I gotta save my money for Destiny 2 or whatever. Or whatever expansion was coming out at the time.
Dude, watching Sergio play Returnal gets me on edge, man. I gotta get like sedated or something to watch this man.
Damn. Okay, Sergio, so I'm gonna explain to you something real quick because I know you're kind of skipping this stuff, and it's already I gotta help you out. When you're at full HP, I know that you're leaving the health resins behind so you can heal yourself. But if you actually pick him up while you're at full HP, it actually gives you an upgrade to your health bar.
Really?
Yes, and it makes your health bar longer. So you should be collecting those as much as you can.
Man, this is about to revisit the whole map.
Yeah.
See?
Does it permanently stay longer?
Until you die.
Until you die?
Yeah,
nice.
So yeah,
wait, that one's
for the cycle.
I personally am excited for it.
You need a sword for that.
But yeah, going back to the Ratchet and Clank thing, because I just want to speak my mind on it, and I know Sergio is gonna attest this that I was speaking to him in my house. Is I was very pissed off with the game because it's not a Ratchet and Clank game. It's a Ratchet and Clank movie. The game, it's a literal movie game made at high-end first-party production quality, and that's what upset me. It's at that level. So while I like the game, it just upset me that now I can't record the cutscenes and share my experience with the game as much as I can through my YouTube channel, like where I do my walkthroughs, because I'm blocked from content ID blocked, and that annoyed me. But what annoyed me even more is that the game is a save on their behalf, because I don't think that company was okay with the way that Ratchet and Clank movie turned out. At least, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe time has changed. But the Ratchet and Clank movie, for as much as it looks like a Ratchet and Clank movie, like what Ratchet and Clank would look like, the way that the story is told and the way that the characters are portrayed, they don't feel like the games at all. I don't know if you want to share some opinion, or maybe you're too lost in the game right now. But
yo, I was just impressed because this is the first time he made it up to 4.6 adrenaline. I'm just like, yo, Sergio, yes, get the 5. Yo, he got the 5. He got the 5. Legendary moment, ladies and gentlemen. Now Sergio's about to just run through the game. Now,
what
please don't.
That's for a grapple hook.
Yeah, it's a grapple hook. You don't have that yet, though.
Yeah.
Yo, I'm very happy he got the 5. Now he's about to feel the full power of the game. I was like, okay, so remember, you need to get the tower before you fight the enemies. That shit right there. That's oozing the green shit.
And before he loses it.
Oh! No, not the 5. Wait. Fuck.
Oh my gosh.
Yo, I'm stressed. I don't like this. Sergio, please hit the tower. Oh no. Oh my fucking god. I hate that. Yo, Sergio, no, up. Aim at the shit.
No, you don't have to aim at it.
Oh, you don't? I thought you did. Tower. Oh my god, he's so dead. Yo, Sergio, you got this.
At least now you can kill the enemies.
I'm losing my faith.
Get some fucking room between me and the fucking thing. Yeah, they fly around. Problem.
All right. Well, you want to give it a shot now? He's already had 3 cycles. Well, I mean, yeah, or I could.
Sergio, do you want to keep going?
If you want to play, you can play.
No, do you want to keep going?
Yeah, that's your experience. But I mean, if you want to maybe see us, like, so you can get a better idea of like what you should be doing. I mean, we can help you out visually. I guess it's up to you, man.
Sure. Go for it. All right.
Yeah, now I can ask him for his impressions to it. He'll give me. No, yeah. Now I just want it. Now, like, he's had 3 cycles, so. The water, yes. What, the vibration? Yeah. That's the rain.
For a second, I was worried that like there was.
Right.
I thought.
Right.
Next time we do this, we should set up the cameras to be in front, because I noticed Sergio literally has the best shot out of all of us. Looking like a god over there. The
problem is your camera that we can't move because the cable's too short.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
All right, so Sergio.
So
now you are in the hot seat.
Okay. How is Returnal?
Oh. Yes, give us your opinion. Cold hard facts. I want to hear cold hard facts. How was your
cold hard facts? Well, it is a video game developed for the Sony PlayStation 5. It was developed by Housemarque Studios, and it runs on the Unreal Engine. No, so those are about as many facts as you can get.
Right.
You know, it was smooth, fast paced. Here's the thing, and I've noticed this doing this on my own podcast, is that when I try to play a game and entertain on camera at the same time, I'm splitting my brain between 2 different things, and I don't do either well, right? It's either I pause the game and I talk, or I just play the game. And in the moments where I could focus, right, and just like really focus on what I'm trying to do, yeah, like the gameplay loop is fun. The gameplay loop is totally fun, and I could see myself sort of getting into that mode of like, okay, how far can I get on this run? How far can I get on this next run? Like, it has that same Housemarque quality of give me another run, give me another run, give me another run. You know, let me see how far I can get on this one. That make their games so addictive. You know, so if that's the kind of game that you like to play, then I could easily see you losing. You know, I don't know how many hours because I don't know how long this game's going to be, but you know, it's fun. It's fun to play. You know. And I don't want to make it sound like I was expecting this game to be a bomb when I like said what I said a few months ago about waiting for PS Plus. It's just you know, thinking about all of the different games that I want to play and then managing that with the time that I actually have to play games. And it's just like, you know, as fun as this game may be, $70, I'm good. I'm totally good.
And I think that's also something you're speaking true to it, right? Where it's like, this game Returnal is basically, it's not coming into the world as an indie game. It's coming into the world in a competing space against Last of Us and God of War Ragnarok, which may come out at the end of the year, and Ratchet and Clank and all these bigger titles that people are far more anticipating.
I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you think God of War is coming out this year.
No, but I'm just trying to say, I'm not trying to say it is. I'm just saying it's coming up into space where people are expecting that. And they're saving their money for that. So, like, for them to kind of stretch themselves a bit further than what they normally can for a game like Returnal that may or may not be good, or it might just be a very isolatory experience where only a certain part of the fan base might enjoy. It alienates a lot of people. Like, a lot of people feel that $70 is too much, and I agree with you, which is why, again, now we can talk, I guess, a bit more about the what I believe the pricing should have been, and of course, like, how I think the prices should go in the industry in general, but. Aside from the pricing, what else was your experience like? How did you feel the controller, the haptic feedback? How was the story? Well, I mean,
the triggers are the triggers are an interesting thing, right? Because you know, there have been other games that try to do that sort of like half press to do one thing and then full press to do another on like older systems that like, you know, it's kind of finicky in terms of the way that you can actually get that.
There's no
that
haptic
press going.
feedback.
You have to really pay attention to that. Whereas the controller is giving you enough resistance where you can just lightly tap on it and you sort of intuitively feel where the controller wants you to be in order to, you know, perform these different functions. So, you know, it's cool from that perspective. And like I said, you know, every so often I like a game where, you know, if you can shoot things in a fast-paced way, you know, that's the kind of shooter that I like to play. Which is why I, you know, grew up liking Call of Duty, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit, and that's why I never really got into Battlefield and stuff like that. But then when you got into stuff like Doom or Duke Nukem, especially old school like 90s boomer shooter type things, you know, that's my style. Like, stay moving, stay active, don't stay in one place for too long, always be moving, always be shooting. That's my kind of my kind of shooter.
That's your Returnal.
And, you know, that's why, you know, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed what I played. Right. I don't see myself picking this game up anytime soon, and that's mainly because I have other stuff on my plate right now.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, it's like you said. I mean, your experience is only as far as you can go because you're obviously you're trying to conversate with us, and you're also trying to play the game. I mean, hopefully Michael here can get far enough so you can see more of the story bits.
Sure.
From my perspective, something I could tell you is the story is actually very interesting. Because it doesn't play out.
I started to interrupt you, but I just had to know because I want to know if I keep making a mistake. I already picked up a bunch of health and it hasn't really increased my integrity more than just once. Yeah. Unless I don't know what those meters are on the side.
Those meters are what it is. You need to get 3 of those to increase your health bar.
Oh, okay, easy. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were saying about the story?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. Like there's a certain part in the game where I got to where the game literally breaks the 4th wall and it freaked me the heck out. Like the game isn't a horror game. It portrays itself as a horror game, but it's not like jump scares. It's trying to be Resident Evil 7 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's a game where it's trying to just make you feel alienated from the game, right? It's trying to make you feel like you're experiencing something new. Xeno. Oh yeah, right. I'm just gonna make that comment there and just leave it at that for those who know what I'm talking about. But essentially, it's trying to make you feel like you're discovering something unknown, and that's what it does. It does a good job of that because it's a roguelite, so you don't know the enemies, you don't know where they're gonna be. The map changes all the time. You gotta learn as you go. You gotta try. It's a trial and error, right? You gotta jump into certain puddles and see if you die or not, or something happens. And that's kind of the draw of the game, right? The mystery. Now, as far as it being like worth $70, that's the toughest thing. Like I could justify it right now to you by telling you have not seen the game at all. What you played is like a fraction of the experience, and if you get further than an hour, you're gonna fall in love with the game, and you're not gonna put it down. You're gonna put it right on top of your list. That's gonna be one of your first buys. The problem is, because I know what type of game you are, the problem is that for you to fall into that experience, it goes down to the thing, but you have to wait an hour for it to get good, right? Not saying that the game doesn't get good immediately. I'm just saying that right now you're not invested in waiting for that experience.
Yeah.
As far as the price, you want to say?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, to me, automatically, well, you're obviously gonna tune in afterwards with what you're gonna say, but to me, right off the bat, I want to say that it is worth $70. For multiple reasons. Like, I know that some people might complain about, like, you know, the amount of content that's in the game, how long it runs, this and that. But personally, just from the quality of the game, for me, I found it fun, like right off the bat, like as soon as the game started off. And, you know, for the efforts of what the studio did and all that, I personally would want to pay them $70 just to support them and to make sure that they could keep making stuff like this. And, you know, honestly, when I look at this versus like a Call of Duty, I would want to say, like, Call of Duty is not going to be shipping out at $70 each as well. I'm going to say that this deserves the $70 over Call of Duty every time, personally. At least just, you know, from what I've seen from Call of Duty.
Right, but the problem is that Call of Duty gives you so much content that it justifies its price on its own, right? It gives you all the DLC for free, and it's endlessly updated, and it has this community, and you want to be a part of that community. Part of the Call of Duty thing is that you want to be a part of the community. You always want to be on the latest game and playing with everybody and playing Warzone and spending time with your friends. It's like the poker night game, right? Or you're just playing COD instead of poker. But going into Returnal specifically, on my opinion, like, just to share it with you, like, I thought this game was 9 out of 10, and I personally thought the game didn't deserve the 70. I thought it deserved maybe max 60, and I could justify the 70, but it wasn't until the game played with my head and it went that far with the breaking the fourth wall in the fourth biome that I finally said, okay, I understand why people are calling this 10 out of 10, and it's like it could be a Game of the Year contender for some. It's because of the experience of the game, like how much it plays with your mind, and it helps. The way the game is made, it tricks you, right? It plays games on you. It gets your expectation, and then it subverts it, right? And that's something that not a lot of mediums can do. And the point of a game is that interactive experience that you can get, where you're getting involved in this world and you're starting to feel what the developers are throwing at you. When you play Dark Souls, you feel that silence, that, oh crap, nothing's gonna help me, and this dread of like, oh, I'm gonna die at any corner. And that's what gives you that experience. You're like, I want to get better every time. That experience is here, but then it plays with you because it changes your expectation. In Dark Souls, what you love about it is that you learn as you go. It's like chess. You're learning how to place your pieces. You trip over a rock 100 times until you learn to get around that rock. In this game, that rock flips to the right, and all of a sudden it's somewhere else, and it's bigger, and it might screw you over in a different way. So that's what makes the experience so interesting. Now, I'm going to give my personal opinion on pricing. This game should have been $50. Hands down. I understand that production this and value that. The problem is that because of the entry being $70 and the fact that it alienates so many players, it brings people like you who may say, I'm not ready to buy this yet. I'm not sure this is the kind of thing I want to get into. I'm saving my money for the games, you know, that I want to get. It's also a new series, a new franchise. So you know nothing about it. You're afraid to spend $70 and be like, damn, I'm out $70. Like, this game wasn't for me, and now I can't return it. That's another problem. If it was 50, you could say, oh, okay, well, you know, 50 is at least a bit more reasonable. Yeah, maybe I'll take a gamble on it, right? And it might have increased some sales. I don't know if it would have, you know, these guys have finance directors and analysts that do all their math, and they check, you know, if we sell at 70, we sell 1 million copies, it'll break costs even or whatever. I can't speak to that. But me saying from a consumer standpoint, I know that 50 would have been a bit more of an easy jumping point, not only for a new franchise, but for new players, and also because the game, for as much as it plays and looks like a God of War tier AAA budget game, it's clearly not. They've already said it. The game is much smaller in scope. It's the only length of the game is the fact that you keep dying and you lose your progress. But the entire game is only 3 and 4 hours long, which is about the same size as the Call of Duty campaign way back in 2007.
But let me ask you though, do you feel like you regretted spending $70 on this game?
No, of course not. Like I said, I could justify it because the experience I got out of it from the gamble was fantastic. But I'm speaking to the people who take the gamble and might not like it. For example, I gambled on Godfall. And my God, did I fall? Did my wallet fall to the floor?
Well, that I agree with. But look, like, let's say in terms of like 70 versus 60 versus 50 or whatever, obviously, you know, Cyberpunk, for as much shit as I give it, obviously the scope of what they tried to do, the amount of money that they probably had to put into it, and like the effort that they put behind it, despite the fact that, you know, they did a bunch of stupid shit. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to be like, oh yeah, no, it should have had a price tag of $30.
No,
$40.
I agree, but I'm comparing sizes of the game, right? Whereas Cyberpunk is this large 30-hour RPG with deep mechanics and open world and all this crap that they had into it, trying to be like GTA or something, whatever the inspiration was for the game. You look at this game, and although it's fantastic, it's generally a small game, right? And it definitely, it feels to me like the budget is of a AA project made to look like a AAA project. With the fact that they mentioned, hey, we decided to settle on 1080p, that already goes to show you that they had a lot less struggle with streaming assets than a 4K game like Ratchet and Clank, trying to shove all those assets into the console, right? That's much less work. And you compare Ratchet and Clank to Returnal, not to say Returnal's anything less, but you compare the size of the game, that Ratchet and Clank has open world, different planets, and multi-level design with like grapple hooks and different types of weapons that do all crazy sorts of stuff. And like Returnal has like about what, 7, 8, 10 weapons max, and they all, you know, shoot. Like Ratchet and Clank's weapons do crazy things like Terramorph. Well, I don't know if it has one that Terramorphs, but I know one that converts enemies into sheep, for example. And they have a lot of things that they have to program into it that makes it a much crazier game, and it's also much longer in experience, right? So in theory, this game should be $50. It's just hidden in a $70 price tag because it looks like a $70 game. And I think that's what lends to the light of being able to sell it at that price. But I understand where you're coming from. Aside from that, if you were to sit down and play this game one day, you're going to be like, I wish I would have bought it. I can 100% attest to this with the entirety of my opinion of the game and what I know about you as a player, because I know that the game is just that good. When you finally get to the first boss, when you experience some of the story elements, the game tricks you. It gives you these feelings that you normally wouldn't feel in another game. And that experience alone is something to be had, because that's what these entertainment mediums are about. You watch Scorsese films and all those old style, you know, Godfather movies, because they give you this feeling of, what is it you call it? A feeling of I forget what it's called. You said that it's what you hate about the Marvel movies, that they don't have a feeling of something real like happening in the moment. Like there's no
stakes.
There's no stakes in it, right?
Yeah.
Or like you feel in those movies like the emotional capture of this, like there's a stake, there's something to be had, there's a problem that will go on, there's consequences. That type of experience you can get off of this game, but you might not get off a Call of Duty game. You might not get it off a Battlefield game. No matter how much money you pay, you can pay for a $100 Battlefield game, and it could have like AAA budget with actors like Hardline did, and it'll never give you the same experience that Returnal does.
Well, you know what's interesting about you bringing up stakes? It's that that's actually something I've been thinking about a lot while I've been playing Resident Evil Village recently. Okay. Which I don't know if you want to go into that.
Try not to spoil it too much, but we can talk about it too, because I also
well, look, I'll be honest. There's not much I can spoil because I don't know what the fuck is happening in the story. So I really won't be able to do much of that if that was ever a problem.
Right.
No. So what you're saying about stakes, I've been playing it recently. You know, it came out on my birthday, right? Okay. So it was one of those things where I was like, you know, yeah, exactly. It was a gift. So, you know, but so I've been playing that for the last few days, and I don't know if I made the mistake of like lowering the difficulty too much, because I started on hardcore, which is how I played, you know, Resident Evil 2, the remake, and how I played what was it? 7, right? The VR version. And you know, that gave me a tense experience. When I started playing this one, you know, on hardcore, the first 15 minutes or so, there's an area where you get to where the objective basically becomes survive, right? And then, you know, you're in there, you're running around. I kept dying over and over and over again. And I got to this point where I kept dying so quickly that I was like, you know what? I don't want to, like, play this game for 50 hours, right? This isn't Dark Souls. Like, I want to be able to have the experience and get through it, because there's other stuff I want to play. And I lowered it to normal, and the shitty thing is that I got it to normal. I got to that same area 15 minutes in, and I was alive maybe 30 seconds longer than I normally was, and all of a sudden, you know, a cutscene happens where you get overwhelmed, and then all the enemies just sort of run away from, like, they hear a ringing bell and they run away. So it's like, okay, great. If you were going to have the game overwhelm me on purpose, right, and then have everyone run away, why wouldn't you do that the second I actually got overwhelmed by the enemies, right? Like, why are you penalizing me for dying too early if losing was the only available option, right? So that didn't make me feel good, but whatever. I'm already playing on normal at this point. After that point is when you get into the first sort of major area of the game, and it's at that point where it became clear that I made a mistake about putting it on too easy a difficulty on normal, because there were no stakes. It was too easy to find bullets. It's too easy to find health items. Enemies die way too quickly. there's no tension, there's no stakes. I feel like I can run right past. This isn't really a spoiler.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that. I'm
what's her name? The tall lady, Dimitrescu, or however you pronounce her name. She's basically the Mr. X of this game, right? Where she's sort of wandering around in different places. You can pop in on her, and she'll sort of like fuck with you. But like, it's so painfully easy to just run right past her. Like, even with her swipe attack or whatever, there's a room where even if she's right outside, you just pop in, you're good, you're safe, no nothing to worry about. And you can walk right back outside, you can sprint right past her. The mini bosses that are in that same area, super easy. Anyway, to make a long story short, the stakes that are required in order to give a horror game the level of intensity it needs to be satisfying, in my opinion, just aren't present in Resident Evil 8. And again, maybe it's my fault for playing on too low of a difficulty, but here's a great example that also exists on hardcore: the save file system. What made the first 3 games so intense or one of the factors rather that made it so intense, was the ink ribbon system, was the fact that saving the actual game was a limited item, right? You had to be very conscious about the way that you wanted to save, where you wanted to save, and sort of manage that as its own resource. Resource management is part of what makes those games tense, right? It gives it, for lack of a better word, it gives it stakes, right? And that's just not present here, because you can just save as many times as you want. You can run right back to the typewriter and save as many times as you want. And I know that once you beat the game, I believe you get like a super hard mode that gives you limited saves and all that. I know Resident Evil 7 had that, but
well, your initial experience.
They should just unlock that from the start, dude.
Right.
I mean, because it's, I don't know. I feel like I'm playing like a really boring Doom clone. Because it's in first person and you can sort of gun through everything.
Right.
It's not it's not nearly as tense.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was actually recording the demo 2 days before the game came out with Mike. He was at my house. I was showing him Returnal, and then I played Resident Evil. And while recording the demo, I was in the castle, the demo, and I got in this part where I was in the underground cave system where like they have all the prisons or whatever that they keep for like the people that keep. I don't know the story of that, but essentially that's what's going on. And Mike was complaining I was a bad player because I was letting the enemies kind of rock me. But the thing was, I was just trying to avoid wasting too many pistol ammo. I didn't know how long the demo was, so I was just trying to play like I play Resident Evil normally. I just save my ammo and try to melee as much as I can. So I found a pipe bomb. I ran around the corner, threw the pipe bomb across, killed like 3 of them. And then the one dude that survived just kept swiping my knife for like hours until he finally died. I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. But then there was like 3 more enemies after that. And I'm just like, walked slightly beside one. I walked slightly beside the other one. I ran up the stairs and then, no more enemies. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. They're not going to chase me or anything. So I find it interesting that the experience was kind of made that way, where it's like they kind of give you this tense feeling, but then it's stripped away so easily. But when you realize, it's kind of like a horror movie where you're watching, the tense of it is the fact that the character's dumb enough to not run away,
right?
Or they're not dumb enough to fight back at the right times. Like I hate when horror movies, when like the main character is like afraid of the bad guy, they throw a chair, the bad guy's clearly knocked out, like she has the ability to end it right there, but then like she or he decides to run away at that moment.
Yeah.
And then they let the bad guy come back and get their revenge. Like that's the kind of crap that I feel about Resident Evil 8 versus this game, where it's like when you screw up, you screw up.
Yeah, now you feel it.
So, and that's what I'm trying to say, because you have a game like that you're spending $70 on. It's high-end production, high quality graphics, everything. You're expecting this experience, but then you get let down. But you have the option of a game where you could take a gamble, and you don't know this because the franchise is new. You have to.
You're never gonna know until you actually
word
play
of
it.
mouth. But I can guarantee you that if you would have picked this over Resident Evil, you would have had a better experience in your PS5 right now over Resident Evil. I can guarantee that to you.
Yeah.
However, we will never know because you're not going to get the game, of course.
Right.
But the point is that people don't know this, and because of that, I say that this game should be $50 because of the general public. For myself, I'm fine
it would
with
give it a lower barrier of entry for more people to try it.
And also because 50 is a new 40, right? Back in the day, games like this would be $40, right? Uncharted Lost Legacy came out at 40, and then Miles Morales came out at 50 because of the PS5 and this and that or whatever. So, $10 increase in inflation, all that. This game would be the new 40, and because of that lower barrier, you might feel a little bit easier going on paying that price. But aside from that, the experience that this game provides, I can tell you won't feel that. You will feel tension when the game wants you to, and you will feel dread when the game wants you to, just like how you do in Dark Souls. And that's what I think would for you as a type of player you are, will definitely give you the experience.
I will say, at least for Resident Evil, when they do take away your weapons, there's a certain section where they take away your weapons.
Okay.
That's when the tension comes back.
Okay, great.
Because all of a sudden now you're completely defenseless, right? And the way you play the game is very different, right? And I mean, whatever. It's interesting, you know. I haven't finished the game. Apparently, from what I've seen through the walkthrough, I'm like way further than I thought I was. I'm like more than halfway through at this point.
So you might as well finish it?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna finish it. Like I intend to finish it. I bought it. I plan to finish it. But you know, I don't know if I'll go back and play it again on a higher difficulty simply because the experience I've already sort of brushed through the novelty. But I don't know. Maybe I'll play it again. Maybe I won't. But you know, it's just
Holy.
7 was a lot more intense, but it's also an unfair comparison to some degree because 7 had the added benefit of virtual reality completely changing the sort of the experience of the game. Right. Whereas this one I'm sort of interfacing on the TV, and you know what, granted it's great, right? Like I'm, you know, playing on the TV, playing at 120 hertz, you know, it's nice, but it's definitely not the same thing as playing in VR. You know, like when you've played Resident Evil 7 in VR, you've played Alien Isolation in VR, and then you try to come to something like Village, it's just like, it just pales in comparison. I mean, it's not, I feel almost spoiled because it's like, it's just, horror in VR is a completely different animal. It's a completely different beast. You engage with it in a completely different way.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because, I mean, Resident Evil 4 is being remade as a VR game now. And
I know, with the dumbest exclusivity clause I've ever heard in my life. Exclusive to the Quest 2, right? So not even exclusive to the Oculus store, where if you have an Oculus, you can buy the game. You can open it up to more people to give you more money, right? No. We're locking it onto this one very specific piece of hardware. Thanks, Facebook. Thanks.
Yeah, leave it to Facebook to manage consoles, right? Console hardware. But talking about that, PSVR 2 is going to come out soon, and Capcom has a much stronger relationship with Sony than they do with Facebook. So I'm sure that those games, well, Resident Evil 4 VR will eventually make its way to Sony consoles, and of course Resident Evil 8 will probably have a VR.
Dude, I certainly hope so. I mean, that would certainly be a motivating factor in me getting the whatever the PSVR 2
the PSVR 2 is supposed to be more like the Oculus Rift now, right? Rumors have it, or the patents have it, it's going to be like the camera tracking.
Yeah, you got like foveated rendering and inside out tracking, and then they have the controllers that are more in line with like a touch style controller, a knuckle style controller
with haptic feedback.
So yeah, you know, you got haptic feedback in the headset apparently, from what I've heard in the rumors.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of interesting features, and I'm sure it's going to look exciting, and I'm sure there'll be some, you know, some new games that'll be cool to experience with it. You know, I don't know if I'll get one immediately. I mean, it really depends. But, I mean, chances are, honestly, I probably won't. I'll probably wait for at least a good year's worth of software to come out for it, and then pick it up then. But, you know, I don't know. It's one of those wait and see type of things. Oh, you finally got the sword.
Yeah, I mean to cut you off, but yeah, he got the sword now. So now you're gonna see like in
Metroid melee as well, so you could have access to like a bunch of different. I don't know if you want to have the feel of it, like so you can see, but you can see like the cooldown thing comes up, so you can't just spam it. It's pretty fast though still. And now you can break these little things, so you have access to more collectibles, you have access to more areas, and now you could also switch up the combat. The combat gets a lot more fast paced.
Sure, it's more dynamic. You have more options.
You can switch between the melee and the shooting.
Yeah, you're gonna notice now you're gonna notice the Metroidvania aspect of it, where it's like you're going back.
Because now there's more stuff you can do.
Exactly. You're gonna go back, open up new doors, open up new collectibles.
Boys, have you seen how I've gotten this health bar?
Oh, it's definitely a lot bigger than Sergio ever got. It's a lot bigger than Sergio, whatever Sergio ever had.
Yeah,
not
well, you know,
how you put you down, but it's just, you know.
I've got an average size bar.
An average size bar.
Yeah. Unlike with you, where we kept bothering you with questions, we he's kind of been on his own for a bit.
He's been focused.
More time.
I mean, I've been listening in, but I've just, since you guys seem to be having a pretty good conversation back and forth, I'm just letting it.
No, yeah. I mean, that's the point. I'm getting his opinion on these things, and he's sharing his experience with Resident Evil 8. But yeah, going back to the thing, yeah, I think it's gonna be great with PSVR 2. Now we know you have Resident Evil 8. You clearly picked the worst option of the two. No, that's to each their own, right?
Wait, you're saying between
yeah, I was making a joke because he's saying that he's having a sort of less
Look, I haven't finished the game, so maybe I'll get to the end and I'll absolutely love it, right?
Right.
I'm just saying right now, I made the mistake of playing it on too easy a difficulty because the whole name of that game is tension, right? And there's just no tension on normal mode. It's just it feels like a really boring shooter, you know, because it's too easy to actually get through and sort of get through all of the challenges.
So this is actually something that we wanted to show you, which we were trying to hopefully you were going to get to, but this is like the story section of the game where it kind of starts giving you a bit of information towards the mystery of what's going on in the background with Celine and whatever's tormenting her in her past. These are moments where it turns into PT, and it's all FPS. It's nothing scary like PT, but it has a definite feeling. About what?
Subtitles.
Oh, you probably turned it off.
I turned them off because we're talking.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to be reading. We're talking.
Yeah.
Unless we want to do voiceovers.
Well, I was just thinking for anyone who was watching.
Sure, no, that's true.
But don't they have the auto CC? Like they could, it'll just get from the game.
There's no way it's gonna hear it over us talking.
Probably not.
No way.
All right.
Well, okay, so you might like it in the end. You don't know. I understand where you're coming from 100%. I've had that experience with games before where I've been kind of let down from a project. That's happened to me with God of War Ascension. Not to say that game's terrible, but it was a game that kind of let me down from the experience I had with the original God of Wars. But going on from that, what's your next big game? What's the next thing you're budgeting for right now? What's the next game that you're waiting for that's going to give you the next big, whatever you're trying to experience?
The next one. Well, I mean, I want to finish Village, and then I really want to finish Demon Souls. I've already finished I've already killed an Archdemon. You know, I would say I'm more than halfway through. You know, I beat Flame Lurker finally after being stuck on that for months. So I really just want to finish that. And then after that, I mean, really, there are some games I want to go back to just because I want to like get back into the style of doing, or get back into the habit rather of doing like essay analysis on certain games. So like I want to go back and I want to play God of War. I want to go back. I want to play The Last of Us because both of those, thematically speaking, are very, very similar to the book that I just wrote, right? So I think there's a lot to be learned from analyzing them from a structural perspective because I think that's going to help me out.
Just for listeners, just so you know, so Sergio on his personal channel, he does like analytical reviews, like in an essay format of games, like doing deep critiques about the story writing or themes. Like he did, my favorite one's the Silent Hill one where he talks about the duality of man and of course like dealing with your sins in the city of Silent Hill, or the town of Silent Hill, better said. So that's something you guys can look out for on his channel. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be doing more of those. You know, I mean, I did a bunch of them, you know, a few years ago and sort of stopped doing it. And, you know, now I'm going to be getting back into the rhythm of what I had before, right? Where before it was I would write my screenplays and then I'd do some essays and then go to another screenplay. Now it's going to be, you know, between drafts of novels, I'll do some essays, you know, because I mean, it'll help from a structural perspective. But then as far as something that's like coming out this year,
I mean, if you want, I can give you a list of what's coming so far.
I'm trying to think. I mean, if you want to start rattling off titles, by all means.
I mean, I don't know if you liked Oddworld, but that was another one that came out recently.
Well, I redeemed that one on Plus. My brother loves those games. He's been playing through Soulstorm, and you know, he enjoys it. He says he likes the older ones more, like New and Tasty. He enjoyed more than Soulstorm, but he's been enjoying that one.
Okay. Well, look, I'll start rattling off. Up next, we have the Mass Effect Trilogy Legendary Edition. Right after that, we got Ratchet and Clank. We do have Final Fantasy Integrated if you haven't played Final Fantasy 7 yet. This is like the remaster with like whatever, all the bells and whistles. In August, we have Kenna, Bridge of Spirits. Supposedly Sifu's coming out this year. We also have Deathloop in September. Supposedly Horizons in November. And then beyond that, I mean, supposedly if God of War even decides to come out, we have Ragnarok this year. If not, don't forget about it.
Of all the games you just mentioned, I think Horizon would probably be the only one. Horizon's easily the only one I'm interested in playing.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll play it immediately at launch whenever it comes out, but yeah, as far I mean, honestly, from that, because I didn't really have much of an interest in Deathloop or you know, Ken is interesting, but that seems more like something that I'd wait for Plus to try.
Well, there's Ghostwire. So, well, look, Kenna's $40, so it's not a full price game.
No, sure. And then it's just I don't buy most games at launch now anyway, right? Like Resident Evil's sort of an exception.
You don't have time.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. I mean, that's honestly the main consideration. It's time and the fact that, you know, I can wait 6 months and I can play it for $15, right? So I'm really patient when it comes to that stuff, and I really don't mind waiting. There are certain games where I don't mind, where I want to get it ahead of time, or I want to get it as soon as possible. And Resident Evil was one of those.
Sorry, 1 second. I would not buy the calibrator because you get a lot of that in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would not recommend it.
And yeah, but you know, it just here's the problem, right? Is that a lot of times when I buy a game immediately, right, when I sort of like give into hype and I'm just sort of like, yeah, I'm gonna go all in, you know, day one, I end up with a Hitman 3 situation where, you know, I bought this game, I'm like, oh yeah, VR, it's gonna be so cool, you know, I can't wait, I love the Hitman games, you know, I spent, you know, dozens of hours across Hitman 1 and 2, you know, it seemed like it was gonna be a great experience. I had not played that game since you guys played it on my show. I really haven't, you know.
That's understandable.
It's part of it is just, you know, I haven't scheduled the time really for me to like go in and play it. The other half of it is that I bought it thinking I wasn't going to get a PS5 until May. You know, I really thought it was going to take me like another 6 months to get a PS5. I got one super early, and then all of a sudden now I have access to Demon's Souls, which is a game that I really want to play. Right? Yeah. So that's sort of eating up a lot of my time. But then even after that, right, there, you know, like I want to play Miles Morales, you know, but I mean that's something that I can borrow off of you, and you know, I just don't I don't really see the value, at least for me, in going all in immediately, right? Like obviously on some level you're supporting the developer, and you're sort of saying, you know, voting with your wallet that you want more of these games like immediately at launch. But it also comes down to the fact that when it comes to like where I put my money these days, I just have a completely different perspective on games, because they don't appreciate in value all that much, you know? They only get cheaper, right? So I don't really go for that. When you're in the environment like you guys are, where you're like constantly talking about the stuff, you're on the podcast twice a week, right? You're reaching people, you're streaming, you're doing all that stuff. It makes more sense, right? Right. Because it's sort of an investment in that brand, right? That you're trying to build, you know, with Co-op Syndicate and all that stuff.
Agreed.
But like for me specifically, it's just it doesn't do much for me unless it's something that I know might have value, like a limited run game, right? Like limited run, they put stuff out, and you know, if you want it, you better get it when it comes out initially, because it's going to be 3 times the price by the time you've decided that you wanted it, right? So there are a couple of games there where I'm hanging on to them because obviously they'll hold their value, but everything else, I'm content to wait until Black Friday. You know, right. I really am.
I'm gonna just add this to the comment real quick, just because I thought it was funny that you were mentioning that for the brand we should be keeping up with games. For the most part, I am trying hard. I'm barely hanging on, and Mike is not at all.
No, I hear you.
I mean,
they can be tough.
No, it's just that you're not buying any new games. I'm the guy playing new games, and then you're just giving your perspective on it from, you know, the Call of Duty background, where you kind of just rotate or gravitate towards those games at the end of the year.
But it keeps you relevant. I mean, that's the thing, is that in a year where there's constantly new stuff coming out, there's a big churn. Look, we worked at GameStop, right? The TV that played, there was a new game on there every week, right? Yeah. There's always something new to talk about. There's always some new game that someone is interested in hearing about. So when that is the focus of the content you're trying to make, then by all means it makes sense. I'm just saying, for me personally, on rare exception does it make sense for me to, you know, spend $60-$70 on a game immediately, because I also just don't know if it's going to be worth it, right? I don't know if I'm going to make the time for it. I don't know how my life's going to change. I didn't expect when I bought Hitman 3 that I would just have so many different things change that I simply wouldn't have the time for it, right?
I agree.
Part of those being, you know, getting a different system that I'd rather play the game on, you know? So
I 100%. Wait, but you can just take the VR to PS5, can't you?
I did, but I didn't plug it in for the first time until my sister came over to my house on my birthday and she wanted to play Astrobot on VR. The VR is just, it's so cumbersome. Until it gets to a point where I can take the thing off the mannequin and I can just put it on, like, don't have to plug anything in, don't have to like set stuff up, don't have to clear space, any of that shit. Like if I had like a dedicated space where all I had to do, put the thing on and I'm good to go,
By the way, do you want to take a shot at the first boss
so Michael finally got
Honestly,
to the
I'm
first
enjoying
boss.
way more watching you kick ass at this thing instead of me just sort of like beating my head against the wall for 30 straight minutes.
I haven't beat this boss yet, bro. This boss always gets like the best.
It's very Warframe, the design of this thing.
Oh yeah. There's a little bit of a Warframe design to it, but you can quickly tell it's a bullet hell game. So it's gonna go nuts, and the game's just gonna drive you.
Ikaruga vibes over here.
Yeah. But I totally understand you, which is again why I was saying this game and the price point can be difficult for some people. Regardless, I personally found, like I said, this game to me was a 9 out of 10 until I saw that fourth wall breaking moment that jumped up. It took the experience to an elevation that, I mean, I haven't experienced in a long time. Granted, the only other game that's made me go nuts like that recently was God of War, and that's just, and I've mentioned it on the podcast before, where it literally makes me get to a point where I want to go nuts when I play the game, right? But that's just because of my enthusiasm and love for the franchise and the fact that I grew up, well, I didn't grow up with it, but my teenage years were mostly filled with God of War. I started with the first game, luckily, so I experienced everything from the beginning to the end as the developers intended.
Yeah.
Now, as far as you're saying, I totally agree with you, which is what you were saying before, right? Where you were saying a lot of people during the PS4 in our age, they kind of just fell off the loop. Mike and I did too, but that's mostly because I feel like when you're a kid, you have more time for these things, but then it comes a point where as you're getting to an adulthood, you start building out your life and you get lost in what you're doing, many different projects. I get lost in trying to, get money. Michael gets lost in his problems too. And then at some point, once you're 30 again, then you kind of have already like a set idea of what you have for your life. You kind of have the chance to breathe, go back and maybe play an hour or so a day, which is what most people have a problem with this game, right? Where they only have like an hour or two to play the game. And then like they have to turn off their console and they lose their progress or whatever.
Holy.
That's kind of the world we're in. But the point is, I mean, there's so much that you're gonna miss out on now that you're gonna go back and be like, wow, maybe I should have thought. Maybe I should have thought about getting the game.
Well, look, okay, so what you're saying there about like there's so much we missed out on, right? There's a handful of PS5 or PS4 games rather that. For some of them, I waited for the PS5 version, right, because I wanted to play at a higher frame rate. And then there are others that I just never got around to because I was busy playing something else. A good example of that is Bloodborne, right? Bloodborne came out 6 years ago. I didn't play it until the pandemic, right? So until we were in quarantine. But there's all of those games that I've missed out on that I can go back to. And now I'm in this sort of like, I guess, sweet spot, at least for me, where it's like just going back to the games I already have is going to take up enough time that the games that are coming out now that I want to play, by the time I have time for them, they'll be that fucking cheap that it won't even matter, right?
Yeah.
I can get 3 of them for the same price it's costing me to get Returnal right now.
You've waited long enough.
Now, the trouble is that sometimes, especially with the Black Friday sales, that the prices are too good, that I'll end up buying a bunch of stuff, and I won't play it. Ni no Kuni is a great example of that. I bought that game like 3 separate times. Now it's sitting on Switch, right? I got it for a great deal on Switch last Christmas. Haven't played it. Have not played it once. I've had a whole year to fucking play it. Have not played it once, even though I had it on PS3 and I had it on Switch. And it's been even cheaper now, right? But again, that's one of those ones where the discount was too good. And maybe I'll get to it one day, maybe I won't. But such is
I believe that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Me included. So no, but I 100% agree with you. That's one of the problems of our age and our responsibilities and all that stuff, and hopefully we can get around to playing all the games we missed out on. Now, let me ask you something else. So, one of the last things I wanted to reach out to you about today was, look, Michael beat the first boss. That's
Thank God, finally.
That's right.
Michael can
the only reason why I was able to do it was because I got like 2 health bars almost. I grinded the crap out of the health bars.
Michael's not going to experience World 2. And he's going to get freaking wrecked in World 2, and I'm going to love it.
Get Shrek'd.
Yes, right.
But one last topic I wanted to reach out to you about today, because with the whole Returnal conversation and games of certain scales not being worth their grit sometimes to some people. Obviously, to me, the $70 are worth it. Maybe not to a person like you, maybe not to the next person, but for me, it is.
Sure.
How do you feel about the big thing going on? And this is a Twitter thing, so obviously by me mentioning Twitter, you should already be lowering your expectation.
I have to be shut down already.
But the console wars thing's always, it's a thing that's going to go on as far as the Patriots versus like the Packers, right? The Green Bay going to go on as far as that type of feud that fan bases have with each other. How do you feel?
Are the Packers a national team?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just saying, like how I don't know anything about sports. I'm just trying to say like one team versus another, but my point is, how do you feel now about people parading Psychonauts as the big contender against Ratchet and Clank?
I didn't even know they were doing that.
Well, because Psychonauts, remember, Tim Schafer and his company Double Fine is owned now by Microsoft.
Right.
So now it's technically Psychonauts is like their Mario, Xbox is Mario. Like, so how do you feel about that game versus Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart?
Well, I guess if I had to pick which one I was more curious to play, it would be Psychonauts, just because I like Tim Schafer and I like the pedigree of that studio. But actually that's one of those ones that I'm getting through Game Pass, right? Yeah. Which again is another thing that makes it hard to play as many games as I want to play, because I have Game Pass. I have a whole bunch of games installed on there, and I've played maybe 10% of them. So it's the same problem with buying all this stuff on Black Friday. The deal is too good. You end up with too much to play, which is a great problem to have. But yeah, I don't. But okay, so like in terms of like which one I want to play or which one I think is the better game. I mean, I don't understand what
like give us your opinion on all three things. So like, what's the better game? Which one do you want to play more? And I guess like based off your previous experience with the franchises, have you played them? Which one do you feel more closely related to?
Okay, so Psychonauts is probably the one I'm more interested in playing.
Okay, so it's more interesting.
I mean, I can't really speak to the quality of the games because I haven't played either of them, but they're also different kinds of games. I mean, I understand they're like third-person platformers, right?
I mean, they kind of do play similarly.
They have a similar style. I'll say that, but it's also a little unfair to compare a franchise that's had 15 years to have new iterations developed in its series, whereas Psychonauts had one game, or I guess two games, a VR game that came out a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
But it really had one game that most people played that came out 16 years ago at this point. I mean, it's a huge jump in time. Who knows how the second one's gonna play differently, right? Because a platformer in 2021 is a completely different ask than a platformer from 2004.
And that's something that people I'm seeing complaining is that Psychonauts looks like a game that was like made for PS3 and not for PS5 or Xbox. And even then, it's not necessarily coming out for the newer consoles.
On some level, it was made for older hardware, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this thing was crowdfunded, like 5 years ago? I mean,
exactly. And then it got pushed back because, of course, they got the funding from Microsoft to expand the game.
Right. So, I mean, it's definitely... I'm interested to see how it shifts out. I never really cared much for Ratchet and Clank. That's the thing, is that for me personally, it was never a series that I got into all that much. It's sort of the Sony mascots. It was rank 3 for me, right, between Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, and
I can agree with that.
And Ratchet. I never particularly cared for it. I never really played the games on PS2. I played some of them on PS3. I have a crack in time. I have Tools of Destruction. I kind of played the games, but I never really got into it. I never really got the story. I never really got the gameplay. I know people like it. I know people enjoy it. I know it's Sony's sort of golden goose when it comes to the mascot style games, right? Because that's the one that they're pushing forward. But I don't know. It was just hard for me to particularly care. So if it was between those two, then I'd have to go Psychonauts simply because I just like Double Fine. You know?
Yeah, I know you're a big Tim Schafer fan with Brutal Legend, which no one talks about.
Although I will say Insomniac is definitely the more consistent studio, right? In terms of the games putting out, they're sort of like consistently of high quality. Because every so often, I'm not saying Double Fine makes stinkers or anything like that, but because they make such weird games, they take gambles, right? And when you take a gamble, sometimes you lose, and sometimes the games they make are not, totally up to par with the other ones they make, so. They're not all going to be of equal quality.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I'm only although I am in the same boat as you, where I'm interested in Psychonauts. I haven't played the original. I'm hoping that there's a sale on the first game on PSN, so I can buy it soon.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's on PS2 on PS4 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
it's on PS4. But regarding the choosing both, I mean, I'm only picking Ratchet and Clank because I've recently gotten into Ratchet and Clank. I remember I bought the trilogy. The original trilogy, like HD collection, and I remember I called you for it. It's like, dude, I bought this trilogy, and oh my god, the Sly 4 demo is amazing. And then I never picked it up again. Like, I got through halfway of the first game, and I never touched the game again. I'm like, I don't feel like playing this game anymore. It's kind of plays a little bit bad, but it's just because it was an old game.
Sure.
But now I've picked it up again, and I was like, wow, dude, I missed out on a lot. Like, there's a lot of interesting things that Ratchet and Clank does that I'd never really see in games anymore, right? And it's like that feeling of that third person actiony Legend of Zelda experience, but with guns. And that's what I love about it, that you can get a random gun and it gives you this weird function that lets you get to another part of the level, just like in the Legend of Zelda, but it's a sci-fi game, right? And then to me, Psychonauts and Ratchet and Clank are the same experience, just that one's psychedelic and the other one's sci-fi. If that makes sense, right? Because I know Psychonauts all about the mind and kind of tricking you, and there's like a little bit of psychedelic stuff.
Well, it's quirky, you know. I mean, it's a different
exactly.
style.
But it has like that 70s thing, and even then there's like little themes of like, you know, the peace sign and all that stuff, and hallucinations and all that, and it plays a lot with the mind. But Ratchet and Clank is more about playing with sci-fi and you know what would happen in a galaxy where this type of technology is, and then robots were actually, you know, automated sentience that have like their own ability to think and all that. Yeah. And it plays a spin on sci-fi, and to me they're both games that they do the same thing but with different genres or themes, and they're pretty good at what they do. Now, as far as like, you know, the whole is Xbox, you know, better because it has Psychonauts over Ratchet and Clank, I mean, that's console war BS and I don't get into it, but the one thing I do want to mention is Psychonauts is coming to PlayStation anyways, so I don't care. I still get to experience it anyways. Because unfortunately when Microsoft bought Double Fine, they had in the Kickstarter that it was going to come to PS4, so they have to, you know, abide by the thing that they promised.
Another Microsoft game coming to other hardware.
Right? It's beautiful.
What a time
console
to be alive.
wars don't matter. But anyways, that's the big thing, and honestly, I'm very excited for both. Obviously, I don't have Game Pass, so I'm not going to get obviously Psychonauts day one. Aside from that, I think that whole war thing was just BS and it was a waste of time. And I don't know why people do this on Twitter, but I guess it's just my hardware's better than yours and I need to justify the price I paid.
Well, I mean, really, the only reason they're doing it is because clearly it's more fun than playing the video games they're bitching about, right? That's the only reason I could possibly foresee them taking the time. Because why am I going to go on Twitter and yell at some 12-year-old in some other country where I don't even speak his language that, you know, oh yeah, no, Ratchet and Clank takes a shit all over Raz. He just fucking bends over and just all the way through. And it's like, dude, just go play the game. Just go play the game. Who cares what he's playing? Who cares what I'm playing? I'm gonna go play what I want to play. You go play what you're gonna go play, and that's it. But no, part of that is just people live for that stuff. You know, they really live for it. I mean, we were talking about that a little bit out there on a sort of a grander scale with the culture, but you know, it's I don't know. I don't have the patience for that stuff.
No, I agree with you. And like I said, to me at this point, I don't like to do too much on Twitter other than promote myself like you know, shill or whatever, because it's just like I don't want to get in a conversation with people where all they're going to do is just get upset at whatever opinion I have, right? And granted, I've been lucky enough to not have too many people fight my opinions, except for like very specific situations with Assassin's Creed storytelling in the present, and of course another thing about God of War or whatever. But it's just I have to be so inflammatory to get such a pull from Twitter that it's like I don't even partake in that social media that much. I really don't want to create content for it because it's just a bad experience for me as a creator, and it's a bad experience for people who I'm trying to connect to who don't care much for me.
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, especially when you realize that in the console war, the only winner is Nintendo.
Yeah. Nobody could. I mean, now. Well, I mean, I don't know. People are really complaining about Nintendo re-releasing their old games at full price, but
who doesn't want to pay $60 for a game they bought 10 years ago?
You're right. Last of Us remake.
That's worth it. Whatever, man. You know, there's too many games.
I mean, look, gaming is great, but aside from that, I mean, the one thing I really didn't want to cover, which I think we covered well, was just the concerns that people had with the pricing for Returnal and the experience. I mean, you just experienced it. You told me you felt pretty great about it. It's not something you're ready to get into, and that's what a lot of people feel like. I know that a lot of people are burned about like the problems it has. I know that they're burnt that I don't have time to spend 3 hours on a run. Like, we get it, but let's not take away points from.
So the game is roughly 4 hours to get from
once you know what to do, and you don't spend like 5 hours per biome trying to figure out what to do because you already know what to do. Then yeah, it becomes like a 4 hour.
Okay,
adventure.
but then like. If we were tallying like the amount of times you died just on an average, right? Like, how long do you think it would take the average person to beat this game? Like 10 hours, 15 hours?
Well, including deaths?
Right, because obviously you're gonna have to die enough times before you know how to get through the. Cycles.
I would probably go up to 20 to 30 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't know. What I'm saying is, that's what I'm trying to say. It's the first biome is a great intro to the game, but it does not do justice to what the game has behind.
Yeah, I would say I just got
biome.
my ass peeled in the second biome instantly.
Like once
literally,
you get
the
to
first one felt like the first biome, the regular ads feel like regular ads. Then you pop into the second one and you start fighting bosses every 2 seconds. I was like, excuse me, sir. I thought you were like supposed to be a regular enemy. That's crazy.
Yeah, like once you get past the first biome and you start experiencing what Returnal's all about and getting returned in biome 3 or something like that, then you start seeing, okay, this game has a lot more under the hood, which is why I'm saying it justifies its own price once you get further beyond.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the main point I heard you guys bring up earlier regarding whether it was worth its price or not was essentially like the feel. Well, one of the things was the feel of the game, like whether or not it truly feels like a AAA title or not, and the other thing was like how long the game is. I was gonna say that like maybe, you know, if you pack the game with like a bunch of different modes and like a long story and stuff, you guys feel that might justify a bigger price tag. But
well, there is a mode. I mean,
well, I was gonna say, even if it's just one mode and it doesn't have that big of a story, you also have to understand what you're buying a game for. So like, let's say if you were to get like one of the best fighting games ever, like, I don't know, you get Smash Brothers with every single possible character from every single game, every side character, everything, all that, and you know, they don't do that great of a story, or they don't add like a bunch of new different modes. I don't know, just the fact that obviously when you want to get a fighting game, and one of the best things about a fighting game to you is just being able to play with a ton of different characters, maybe that might justify the game being worth $100 to you, or $110 to you, like whatever, you know, like a bigger
different to everyone. I agree with what you're saying.
Right. So for me personally, just playing Returnal, oh fuck, I shouldn't probably try to have a complicated discourse while playing the game, but I was gonna say, I don't know, just off the fact, like, number one, I like really challenging games like Demon Souls and Dark Souls and stuff like that. Like that's something that I like. I just actively like to seek out challenges.
Maybe you should buy one.
Huh?
Maybe you should buy one.
Bro, I own like Demon Souls, like virtual and like a hard disk as well.
Maybe
I think
you should beat it.
Oh. Since you like horror games so much, maybe you should buy one. Same thing.
I did. I got Evil Within 2.
Have you played Bloodborne yet?
Huh? Have I played Bloodborne? No,
it's
I haven't.
free. You
Stop
have it.
slacking.
I will get
slacking,
to
dude.
that.
You have it. It's free.
I will get to that. The point is, I kind of feel like Returnal's worth it. I don't know. I really enjoy.
No, I agree with what you're saying, where experience really justifies the price for one person, but may not justify it for another.
Right. Like, I guess, I mean, just in general, like making games, I feel like if you were, well, I don't know. If you were to make the argument that, like, you know, the gamble might be too much for certain people at $70, I kind of feel like you just have to say that with any game,
right?
Because of the fact that, you know, nowadays you don't really know what you're going to be getting. You know, like Cyberpunk was advertised as being amazing and ended up being kind of a shit fest.
We live in an incredible time, right? Where if you're interested in a $70 game like Returnal, you can go on twitch.tv/Co-Op Syndicate and you can watch someone play it live, right? You can get their opinion, you can get 3 people's opinions on it. 30, actually, how long ago was 1980?
I'm sorry to stop you right there.
Was that 40 years ago?
I'm glad you plugged their Twitch, but we don't use the Twitch anymore.
Or whatever, fine. Wherever you're streaming, doesn't matter.
YouTube,
wherever you're streaming.
YouTube.
My point is that there's enough content out there being made by enough people that you can educate yourself on what you're looking for in a game before you ever play it, right? There's enough content out there where you can make an informed decision.
The reviews are trying to be falsified, like Cyber.
Sure, and some places do that, right? But my point is that 40 years ago, right, when all you had was basically the box art, right? When Quaker Oats was making games for the Atari 2600,
and then
that's when you really had no idea what you were getting into, right? And that's mainly why the market crashed, because, again, like I said, Quaker Oats had a game development department. You had no idea what game was going to be good, what game was going to be trash, which is why the magazines got popular, Nintendo Power, and then you had, you know, EGM and Game Informer and all that stuff.
That was back in the day when Nintendo had a helpline with
right, you could call, you could call, you could get walkthroughs, and you could rack up your parents' credit card number, calling the 800 number. But Anyway, there's enough information out there on almost any game now, right? Especially a big box game that you're going to be getting at a GameStop or a Best Buy or something like that, that you can make the informed decision before you decide to spend $70, right? And it really, ultimately, because you have access to the info, saying you're not really going to know is, I don't know. I feel like that doesn't really count as much as just how you value a proposition like $70, right? Because the information's out there, right? I mean, there are personalities that if you're into the game space, you develop an appreciation for and you trust their opinions, whatever. Like I listen to Colin Moriarty, right? Like I admire his sensibility, and I think we have a lot in common in terms of the kinds of games that we like to play. Guy's been playing a lot of Outriders right now. I don't give two shits about Outriders. I don't even know. I've never even seen gameplay of Outriders, right? I have no idea what it looks like. I have no interest in playing it, right? If you had brought it, fine, I would have tried it. But again, I don't have any interest in it. He might have interest in it. I don't. But you find out, you just fall into the grooves of the stuff that you like to play and whatever. I mean, you're not going to know you're going to like to play this game ultimately until you play it, right?
Right.
But at the very least, there's opportunities for you to be able to see whether or not this is an investment that you want to make.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with what you're saying there, because ultimately, all I'm trying to say is I don't think that the argument that you'd be taking a gamble on it is enough, especially when you could do your own research before, purchasing it. And like anything else, there's always going to be a little bit of risk from purchasing any product or service, right? Ultimately, you might be dissatisfied with it. And I think that something that really doesn't help is the fact that they make it like half impossible to try to return any of these games. I know that there's reasons to do it as well. But when you're looking at the amount of quality that was put into this game, the amount of time that you can spend playing it, obviously it's not the longest game, but one of the things that it has compared to most of the titles, I think that Returnal beats out like 80% or 90% of all titles in terms of replayability, right? Because sure, you could say like, I don't know, any game could be replayable. Like if you really enjoyed that much, maybe like, I don't know, you've probably replayed Uncharted 2 500,000 times because you love it.
Too many.
I replayed the story for Jedi Academy 5,000 times because I really enjoy it. But is it really going to be as replayable as something like Returnal, where it just is truly a different experience? It's a different experience every single time you pick it up and stuff.
Well, look, okay. I understand where you guys are coming from, and I'm also of the mind of justifying the price, right? And it's too hard to say whether a game it's worth its grit at $70 or $60 or $50 or whatever, because of course at the end of the day, the pricing, if you start changing the price according to what people feel, then some people are gonna be like, oh, that game's not worth $10 either. It should be like $5 or whatever, right?
Ultimately, if everyone's just looking out for their own self-interest, everyone's gonna be like, oh, the game should just be free.
Right. But the problem, I know that, and those are like the people hiding in their basements saying that, like, freedom to the press and pirate games and Pirate Bay is the way to freeform the market. I don't know. There's a bunch of crap we can get into with that stuff. But what I'm trying to say, it's true, man. I mean, but what I'm trying to say.
Like a conversation.
I'm just making some, I'm fabricating some stuff for spiciness. But what I'm trying to say is, at the point that we're at, there is some truth to what I'm about to say, and it's like, how can you compare a game, not like Returnal, but I'm saying like a game like, for example, Psychonauts, which is clearly a $40 game in its mind when it was created, and compare that and praise it at the same price of a game like God of War, which is clearly of higher production and quality. Not saying that it's a better game or anything, because obviously Psychonauts might have a better story or whatever than God of War, but the point is, like, in terms of production, quality, size, and all that stuff, like, you're getting the same product for the same price. There needs to be some reform in that. That's what I'm trying to say.
But do you put this game at a level that, like, that God of War isn't?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. For as much as I consider this game a 10 out of 10, it's not God of War. It doesn't have, while it does provide a very addictive feeling to it, with like how fun the gameplay is and all that stuff, and how great the game is going, there isn't this big Hollywood cinematic, blockbuster AAA budget thing coming out of it. It's just a game that's just very good and high quality. That's what I'm trying to say. But what I'm also trying to say is also, I'm trying to create an expectation, right? Because if you know what you're going to get based on what you're paying, it creates a new expectation that settles in on the market, so that people know what they're going to get into, right? If you're paying $70, you're expecting, God of War. You're not expecting Returnal. You're not expecting anything less than God of War.
But let me ask you this though: why is it that the only games that are worthy of being $70 are games that are highly cinematic? Like
it's
God
not
of War
highly cinematic. It's that it's already established itself. Because I
like
wouldn't say God of War 1
you mean
was
like
worth it either.
a series that's like long running or something like that?
Yeah, like it's already established itself as a series to understand, like, you know what you're getting into, and it's getting in higher in production. Like a Returnal 2 might be a bigger game with like maybe 9 biomes instead of 6, and it might have an even longer story.
Right, but then aren't you just inviting the conversation? Like, okay, you launch Returnal at $50, and it's a rating smash and a sales smash, and everyone loves it, and they greenlight Returnal 2 immediately. So Returnal 2 comes out, and that one, because it's the franchise, they choose to sell it at 70.
Size. It's also size of game, right?
No, fine. Size, whatever. But my point I'm trying to make is that now you're inviting the conversation of, oh, the last one was 50. Why do I have to bother with this? And that's an uphill battle that they're going to have to fight. Whereas, if they launch this at 70 and they get a franchise out of it, then they can just keep it at 70, right?
Right.
And that's a higher margin that they're making.
I 100% agree with that, but now I'm going to counter with this. How do I justify Returnal at 70 when I could get GTA 5 at 60? And it's like 5 times the size of the game with an infinite online multiplayer that lets me create infinite multiplayer levels.
Okay, but hold on. Who's you in this context? Is it you as the consumer, or is it you as the producer deciding the price?
Me as a consumer. How do I justify me buying $70 on one game when I have
How have you not played GTA 5 already?
No, I have. I'm just saying. How do you?
I know you have. But how is that the question?
My question is, how do I?
It sold 130 million units.
No, I
who hasn't played it?
I agree with you. Like, who hasn't played it, right? But when you have that expectation, it's like, wow, if this is my experience for $60, now why the F is that $60 too?
They're two different experiences, though. You're not gonna play GTA and be like, bro, I need to beat this game. It's the most challenging thing of my life. Like, I can't believe the variety in the enemies.
I understand the experience.
It's a completely different experience.
I understand you're getting a completely different experience.
If you want to sit down and you want to say that maybe games should be measured, like the price of games should be set according to how much money they invested into it, not necessarily just what you find to be a better experience, then that's a different conversation.
I'm not saying a better experience. I'm saying length and size of game plus budget.
Okay, I'm just gonna use an example. I don't mean anything by it. Let's say I'm the best Returnal player there is. I literally pick this game up. I shove the controller up my ass.
Humble brag.
Humble brag. The muscles of my ass literally get the character to just destroy everything in one shot, and I make it through in like 4 hours or whatever. Okay, the game was only 4 hours for me, but what if Sergio's like a more casual player? He comes in, he's having a hard time getting used to it, but he really enjoys the game. He's kind of trying to see like what are the different approaches he could take to play it and stuff like that. He ends up spending 40 hours playing the game or whatever. That determined that length for him. You're not gonna get, like, you can't say that the length of a game should determine how costly it is, because then what happens to games like Smash Bros, where essentially the only thing you do is just hop in there, pick the same characters, fight each other over and over and over again. That doesn't have a predetermined length. Different games are gonna
I understand that. I understand the different games, but again, with the Smash
there was another
Bros,
point I was gonna bring up too.
With the Smash Bros, I could easily counter in that game. You remove the story mode, it could easily have passed off as a free-to-play game, and they would have been 10 times the money over, because everybody would be buying skins for like every single character.
Everyone buys the character. Well, maybe if they added skins, I would
have
actually
added microtransaction skins and would have made the game free-to-play. That game would have made 10x money.
But there's a lot of risk and stuff that goes into that too, and maybe they just don't think it's worth it, or the amount of money that they sink into it first. Maybe they just they need the $60 price tag to make sure that they get their worth back. The other part of the conversation is with a game like Returnal, like you said earlier, it is a more niche experience. So what happens if they sell 1 million copies at 70, but then they go ahead and lower the price tag originally to try to sell it more, but they only sold 1 million anyway. Now they made half the margin. That shit's never gonna come back.
I agree, and that's why I said that there's specific analysts that obviously know more about this, and they say, well, look, this is only gonna give us like 1 million sales, so we're gonna leave it at 70 because we're gonna make the money back, right? And I agree with everything you're just saying right there. But there's also a point where you have to really consider, with the size of games, like, okay, is this really the way we're gonna go? Because again, you put GTA 5 next to Returnal, and that game and its size and scope is the same price. Like, you're starting to see, okay, so there's a certain quality that we can get for the same price. I'm going to gravitate towards that, and that should be the new standard. And then Red Dead 2 comes out with a 50-hour campaign, and even bigger than GTA 5 and this and that, supposedly with 200 hours of content, this and that, and Witcher 3, and they're all coming at the same price. then at which point do you build the expectation and you set the standard? It's like, okay, at this price I get this size of game, and this price I get this other size. Right? Kenna should be $70 at that point too, but it's actually
we're in a
40.
transition period right now, right? Because games have been historically adjusted for inflation. Games are the cheapest they have ever been in gaming history at this moment,
despite the fact that they went up $10.
No, exactly. Despite the fact that we're going from $60 to $70, right? We went from 60 to 50 with PS2 to PS3, right? So we're going through a similar situation now, right? Where, we're in this sort of squeamish period of, what does a $70 game mean, or this or that? Where $70 is just going to be what $60 was last gen, and the same thing you said, where 40 or 50 is the new 40, 70 is the new 60, 90 is the new 80, whatever, right? And we're in that incremental period where now, yeah, sure, it's like what to expect from this or that. But at the end of this gen, I mean, pretty much most games that are, big budget, big box, like that kind of style of game, they're all going to be $70 because that's what people are going to pay. You know? I mean, that's what we're moving towards.
I agree. All I'm trying to say is at which point do we build the expectation? Because I would say Returnal is about the same size of a game like Kenna, right? Or at least what they're promising us that Kenna is going to be in size, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be kind of like Spider-Man Miles Morales, right? Where it's like big budget, it looks AAA, but it's clearly a smaller game in the size and scope of a AA game, right? It just has the AAA budget with the quality of, the higher graphical rendering and all stuff, but that game was $50. And to me, Returnal is just a little bit better than Miles Morales in terms of quality, but it's still the same size in terms of scope of the game, right? And that, to me, and maybe I'm still missing something, but I'm just saying, like, to me, I justify the $70 price because I enjoyed it. It was worth it. I'll spend it again, and I'll buy it $70 100 times over. If I get the chance to buy this game again, and it's my first time experiencing it, I'll do it again. But I'm trying to say, like, in terms of building a new standard for the industry, there should be a space for games like this that are a bit more niche and of course, a little bit less in budget compared to the bigger ones to come out at a smaller price, because that'll give them at least an easier entry point or an easier barrier compared to those bigger titles. And that's where the whole boutique thing comes in, where like there should be a boutique of PlayStation titles that are obviously lesser in scope than Naughty Dog's like Last of Us or Santa Monica's God of War, and brought down to a more, appeasable price.
There should be. But the problem is that there won't. I mean, look, it's just, the short answer is that they're going for big bets, right? They're going for the biggest bets they can possibly make because they want to make as much money as, and they're a business, right? They should be doing that. But, they are leaving a lot on the table by not leaning into that degree. Anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. But I was just gonna say that when you have the conversation about the boutique, I'm with you. But when we previously talked about the boutique, it was like, like it sounded to me like we were talking about like very, very like small games, like something like an Ape Escape or like an indie title.
Dude, an Ape Escape the size of Kenna is worth $40. That's what the boutique is. It's a place for them to be able to bolster franchises that don't merit the AAA budget but still create sizable and enjoyable games to then hopefully test.
It's not just about budget though. You also have to take into account budget, but also overall sales.
Exactly.
Like,
because you expect the sales to be smaller, you budget it at less, and then that's why it becomes a AA instead of a AAA. That's what I'm trying to say.
With your argument, I almost feel like you could even justify then charging more for like a Grand Theft Auto or more for.
Yes, that's what the point is. That Grand Theft Auto should be appraised higher than other games.
Those games would typically sell more than something like a Returnal anyway.
Exactly, but
so you're saying to just increase the price of like
because everybody knows that GTA 5 is gonna be amazing every time, it justifies $70 in size and scope and both expectation.
But then the companies, according to your argument, they would then say, well, if we're gonna have to lower the prices of our games like Returnal and stuff like that, well, we're gonna make it up by increasing the price of AAA titles. And since they're AAA
that's
and everyone
exactly
loves
what just
them,
happened. They just increased the price of all of them at $70. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, but it was 70 flat across the board, and it's to account for stuff like inflation and the cost of producing games within the current landscape. If you want like an actual definitive like lowering in price of games like Returnal, games are gonna simply also then the companies are also gonna simply increase the price.
I understand what you're saying, but I just said it. Spider-Man Miles Morales came out at $50, and it looks about the same size as Returnal. That's what I'm trying to say. Why is Spider-Man, which is a household name, $50, but this is $70? There's no change in size other than this game has like the randomization, but that's not enough to make it as sizable as God of War. The whole point of the $70 tier is to make that up.
I already brought up the point for that. Spider-Man Miles Morales is probably gonna outsell Returnal.
Right, but the biggest problem with a game like, for example, one of the biggest complaints. I'm sorry. Final point. Well, yeah, look, this is the final comment right here, but basically this, and I remember hearing this on another show. I forgot which one it was, but maybe it was David Jackson. But essentially, one of the things that developers had to do with games like Horizon and Days Gone, where there was a lot of boring parts with side quests, was that they had to build a lot of padding to financially justify the fact that the game was bigger and at that $60 price. So by making it smaller in scope, if you're going to sell at the same price, you're already risking the fact that people are not going to be happy with what they're getting in terms of the size of a game because it's not justified by its price because the game's already smaller. Right?
I think what you're describing is sort of this like notion of like not mysticism, that's not the right word, superstition, right? That is sort of popular. I'm going to compare this to Hollywood, right? And it'll make sense in a second. But, you know, every so often there's a superstition that, oh, you can't cast a white guy as this person because it won't sell tickets here. You can't cast a black guy as that person because it won't sell tickets there or whatever, right? And then they end up doing the inverse of it and they end up proving it wrong. And all of a sudden, you know, every movie starts starring that kind of person, whatever. My thinking is, and I don't know this for sure, but my thinking is that among the business divisions of these companies, there's probably a superstition that's holding that if they don't charge a certain amount for this kind of game, right?
They won't make their money.
Not that they won't make their money back. Obviously, that's the prime motivator. What I'm saying is that the public perception of the game, if it's a budget title, will come off as it being a budget title, and therefore there won't be nearly as much excitement about it. Whereas this industry, right, the way games are sold in this industry is based exclusively on hype, right?
That's very true.
It's trailers, it's previews, it's streams, it's all of that stuff. So what you're saying is logical, right? Because of the content level of this game, right, the price should reflect that, right? And games that have more content, like The Witcher 3, right, where it's 180 hours, that could easily be a game that's worth $100, whereas this game could easily be worth 40 or 50 because of the amount of content in it. What I'm saying is that by charging 50, 40, whatever they're going to charge for this game, the perception of it that they're worried about, I'm not saying this is the truth, I'm saying they hold the superstition that people are going to perceive this game as lesser or not nearly as valuable as, say, a $100 GTA or a $100 Witcher, right?
And I understand where you're coming from with that.
But what you're saying makes sense, and in theory, that would be a perfect world where that stuff happens. But unfortunately, I think it's probably closer to the one I just suggested, where it's like, yeah, we need to charge a lot for our games because we are Sony. We command this value for our projects or whatever the fuck, something along those lines.
I agree with you. The reason, the counter I was going to make though is that you were saying because of the $70 that they have to, justify that this is the same quality as GTA and all that. The problem is that they, despite the fact that this is a big budget game, it's their first release on PS5, they didn't promote this game in the same way that they've been doing Ratchet. Ratchet & Clank has come out in June, and they've been promoting that 10 times over this game. Mm-hmm. This game has been almost hidden, they were afraid to show it, and that people weren't going to jump in and buy it or something. And although that kind of could speak to volumes of hiding the quality of a game to assure sales by word of mouth or whatever, these are all things that I guess why don't we have another episode where we just discuss? Yeah, we're gonna have to take this off to a part 2. I don't know, sir. Do you want to come back tomorrow? No, I can't do tomorrow. You want to do next week?
Not like I'm doing anything. Whenever you guys are available, you let me know.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Don't worry. Take your time. Anyways, just to finish my comment, it's just that there's a lot to talk about for setting expectation. I get what you guys are saying, but the problem is again, these risks. Now, if Returnal doesn't make the numbers that they wanted, then we're probably not going to get another Returnal type game at this quality. You know how hard it is for a game like this that you have to constantly die like this, like Hades, to come out at this quality? It's not going to happen because it's not going to make the numbers. And then the possibility of a game like this happening again because of the money they spent and how much they're making back, it could hurt them. What I was trying to say is it's not that to create the superstition or to work around it. It's to create a set standard so that there is no more superstition. If you create a base standard saying, okay, games like Returnal are 50, maybe 60. Okay, let's just say 60, whatever, just to say it's a little, because it technically is like a $60 game. And there are games like Kenna, which are like 40 or 50, right? then it sets a standard for the type of budget that type of game has and the type of product you're going to receive in terms of size. Then that leaves the customer understanding, okay, if I'm going to pay this price, I'm going to get this type of game, this is what I should expect, blah, blah, blah. And it makes it easier on the developers too, because then they avoid situations like Horizon or Days Gone where they have to pad hours and hours and hours of content that they don't want to put in, that's completely uninspired, shitty, like, you know, A to B subquest for the sake of
so now you're talking about something completely different, though. I feel like I haven't come across anything that's like kind of worthless in Returnal yet.
No, I agree with you. I'm not saying it's worthless. I said I agree with the fact that it's worth $70.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying that there should be a set, like, creating an expectation so that the consumers can understand, and it's not, oh, this is not GTA quality, so it doesn't deserve its price. I'm just gonna wait for it to be $10 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And of course, to avoid the superstition of the developers to have to fear people not buying their game. So
well, I feel like well, we obviously got to let Sergio go.
This is that pretty much.
We clearly need to revisit this conversation because I feel like, you know, we didn't do it justice with the amount of time that we gave to it, switching between so many different subjects. Ultimately, I guess I'm just gonna give my final opinion. I think it's a great game. Get it if you're into like challenging games, if you're into bullet hell, if you want to try something new, like a different kind of third-person shooter.
I personally think if you want a solid experience that like really blows your mind and makes you think differently about a game, if you could put up with the difficulty, you're in for a ride. There is definitely an experience to be had here that you will not have in another game. Maybe Hades you can have it, but it like the way that this game portrays itself, it's obviously sci-fi and different, and it's something to be had regardless of price. So, Sergio, how do you feel? Final comment?
No, I thought it was a fun game. You know, I mean, my rule with most games, right, is that honestly most games aren't worth more than $20. So just wait till that. But no, you've watched us play the game for 2 hours at this point. So I mean, if you don't know that you want to play the game by now, then I don't know if you ever will. So it's fun. It's fun. You know, it's definitely fun. That's for sure.
Well,
all right. Well, thank you for coming on, Sergio.
Thank you for having me. I would love to. I'd love to come back on and finish that discussion.
So
where can people find you?
Yeah, give us your official.
Yeah,
handle.
so YouTube. Well, actually, my YouTube URL is like a bunch of different names. So the best way to find all my content is srsotolongo.com. srsotolongo.com. You can find all my essays there, all my podcasts there, everything I'm working on. Whenever the book comes out, that'll be on that front page. So feel free to check that out and keep that bookmarked, because that is the home for all of my content. So thanks for having me on, boys. I had a lot of fun.
Of course.
Always fun
we
being
can do
here.
part 2 next week, and we can have this deeper meta conversation about pricing.
Whenever you guys want to continue the conversation, we shall definitely do that. Me and Jordan, at some point, we're probably also going to bring up emulators. We were talking about an episode specifically on emulation, because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that too.
Hell yeah.
Maybe if you want to be a part of that as well, whatever you're down, man.
Sounds fun.
Right.
All right.
Well,
all right.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. We'll catch you next week. Peace. Happy gaming. And